I'm going to go ahead and start this. Oh, come on. So I'm going to go ahead and start this now, even though I don't quite have everything together. I realized last night that I don't know how, but I apparently lost my notes in the hurricane, even though they were on Google Drive. I don't know how that works, but I apparently lost my notes for this in the hurricane somehow. So I don't know how that happened, but, so I had to start over with the slideshow and everything from scratch last night. So this is an incomplete slideshow. But that's okay, because this is programming, and this is hands-on, and I can just do it in front of you and do it live. And, it'll work. So let me see, who's in the chat right now? It's just Charlotte and Stiliferous. Well, that's okay. I was going to start with some internet history for you guys while we wait for this. While we wait for the last few stragglers to show up. Because we're about 20 minutes after we were supposed to start. So a bit of internet history to start. So basically, we're going to talk about, obviously in this class, I should say before we start, we're going to talk in this class about how the internet kind of operates, how web pages work, how to build web pages, and how to learn to program in general. That's really what this class is geared for more than anything else. I don't know who all's watching on YouTube, but there is a link in the description to the Optimalverse server if you want to join us in the voice chat. I see there are people in the voice chat here. If you want to come on and talk, you can. I won't stop you. Actually, you know what I should check? Watch, I'm going to go look over at the, watch this. I'm going to go look over at the live stream, and people are going to tell me that they can't hear me, right? Someone watching this, go just tell me if you want to come on and talk. You can. I won't stop you. Oh, okay. I can hear myself on the live stream, so I must be audible. I was just like sitting there like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. I've done this before. Isn't there like a thing where you just can't hear them? All right, so everyone can hear me. All right, so after that false start, I'm going to go back to what I was doing. While we wait for some stragglers to show up, I'm going to go over some internet history. So basically, a lot of people don't realize this. The earliest computers were developed in the 1800s, along with the telegraph. And really, they could have developed the internet in the 1800s, and they kind of did, except for instead of sharing, directly between computers, it was mostly, you would telegraph, what you wanted. You would directly manually telegraph a message to someone, and then be like, hey, run this on the computer over there, and then they would hit the buttons on they would do whatever it is they did over there to make the computer work, and, back in the 1800s, and then they would send back the results. So obviously this wasn't a very good, way to do it. But by the 1960s, they had enough computers sitting around at various Department of Defense and government and university sites that they could develop something called ARPANET in the 1960s, which was basically just, they connected all these computers through the telegraph lines that they had already built, which were now being used as phone lines. So it was originally the Department of Defense's network that they roped in university networks. They got international connections going. CERN was an early group. CERN is going to come up a couple times in the history of the internet over in Europe. Eventually, IBM and a couple of other major corporations that were doing government work at the time, a lot of corporations at the time were starting to build internal networks, and eventually they started, hooking themselves up to this ARPANET thing and the surrounding networks. Namely IBM, because they were running the Social Security computing. And by the 1980s, you had everything becoming interlinked through what were called T3 connections on these massive server farms. Back then, like T3 was the precursor to fiber, and you could only have it like you only had it between servers, and nowadays you can have a T3 line going to your house. It's just expensive. Anyway, by 1990 we had a modern internet. So the internet in 1989 was basically on the command line console. So you would run a command, it would connect to a server, and the server would respond to your command, and it would send you back a few kilobytes of data, so a little bit of text. Over time, the documents that they would send got fancy. They had sort of markup languages, namely standard generalized markup language, which was, it was this bracket-based markup language, which basically was the precursor to HTML, except it didn't have standardized tags. It depended on what program you were using. So if you didn't have the right program, it didn't matter what you got sent. And it was built for all sorts of things. But this is where like Usenet and MUDs, multi-user dungeons, and all these text-heavy web services that sort of came about, but we didn't have what we now know as the World Wide Web until HTML was developed. So basically, in 1990, this researcher from CERN named Tim Berners-Lee, he and a bunch of people around the world had been talking for a while about, we need to make a standard for like web-based documents, for internet documents, that they all view the same, and that we don't have to have people, because back then you had to know how to use a computer, and you had to have a good computer to do this, because it was all command lines. It was all weird command line things that you had to type in. You had to know the commands. And he was proposing this idea of, what if you could have the links in there and just have a program that would just guide you through these HTML pages, these hypertext pages, and the hypertext is, it does things like formats things and adds links, and maybe even we could load small files, like maybe put images together, because we're using, text right now to write ASCII images, So in 1990, they came out with the first finalized version of the HTML 1.0 standard. They had built a server-side program for serving HTML files over what was called the HTTP protocol, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And they had built a client-side program for viewing, which was the first console-based web browser. And that's how the World Wide Web begins. Then later in 1993, another team at MIT develops Mosaic, the first web browser with a graphical user interface. 1994, Netscape becomes the first big commercial web browser. And it's basically an updated version of Mosaic. And then 1995, Internet Explorer comes out, and then you've got two major browsers, and then that's when the browser wars began. The browser wars are an interesting period, because from here on, we're going to see like every year something interesting comes out until they end. So before we go on, though, we should talk about CGI and PHP. Basically, I told you about that early program that, okay, it's a program on the web server that delivers HTML. Well, you could write your own version of that program that messes with the HTML in what was called a CGI script, a Common Gateway Interface. And around 1993, this guy named Rasmus Lerdorf had the idea of, well, what if I wrote this thing that was just a scripting language for one of those? And he created what he called his personal homepage program, which took this thing called PHP script. And in 1995, he released this standard that, with input from everyone else, and made it this open source project that anyone could contribute to. And that's how we had what became, from this guy just wanting to speed up his workflow, basically, to automate part of his workflow. We ended up with this thing that could do databases and all sorts of advanced things, called PHP. It was the first programming language. It was never meant to be a programming language. It just became one. And eventually they changed the name to PHP Hypertext Processor.
Hey, Rock, there's a couple things in the voice text channel.
There's a couple things in the voice text channel. YouTube is not showing the right frame. And the Discord event isn't started. There, I started the Discord event. What is it not showing the slideshow?
It's like zoomed in.
It's zoomed in. How so?
The stream over on YouTube, the
Yeah.
dimensions are wrong, I think.
I'm gonna go check the stream on YouTube then. Has it been just showing? Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds like OBS. Yeah, OBS does this. This is what OBS does. Let's see if I can fix that. Yeah, sorry to everyone on YouTube who was like watching what they thought was going to be like a, what I thought was a nice little slideshow. Geez, I don't know how to fix that. You know, it's probably in YouTube itself. Wow, that is pretty bad. What the heck is wrong with this? I cannot figure out how to fix this. I guess I'm going to have to manually mess with this, aren't I? Alright, well, let me see if I can fix it like this. Window capture. What the heck is wrong with this? I cannot figure out how to fix it. I guess I'm going to have to manually mess with this, aren't I? I hear someone watching the stream in the background. Okay. Alright, let's wait a moment. Can you all see this now? Like, is it showing it correctly now? I can't even tell. I can't even tell. I don't think it is. It doesn't look like it is. Well, what happens if I do this? What happens if I just move it up into the corner of the screen? If I just move it into the corner of the screen. Hang on. Let me wait for the YouTube stream to make its way. It's on YouTube's end. YouTube is doing something weird. Okay, let's see. No. Where did I grab this? Oh, that was very grabbed. Let's do this. There. Now the windows. Now it's inside the view that you're seeing on YouTube, I think. I'm gonna assume. Well, I can't assume. That's the problem. Oh, YouTube, why are you doing this right now? Why can't I? Oh crap! OBS has frozen. I cannot mess with OBS now. Well, I can't mess with OBS right now, so it's Wait a minute. Yes. Let me see if that fixed it. I really am annoyed with YouTube right now. I've never seen it do that before. Watch that. Watch. I'm gonna hit yes on the screen. Okay, and that didn't work. Okay. Yeah, it's the lag is even annoying because it means that well, this is also the recording of it. That's why I'm like, oh wow, I don't want to mess up, this recording of it, because then I can't see what I was doing, people can't look at it later. Hey, you know what I also thought? What if okay, well, I don't know why it's not working properly, but I can see that I can't fix it at this point any further than this. So I'm just gonna live with it like this. And y'all can still kind of see this. Yeah, y'all can still watch this. I will just have to remember to put everything inside this thing so y'all can see it. Like I said, the Discord version of this is still working just fine. I think everyone on Discord can see my window just fine. I don't know why either OBS or YouTube is messing up like this, but you know, everyone on YouTube can see what's going on or everyone on Discord can see what's going on just fine. So if y'all want to be on the Discord and watch on the Discord, you know, that's what the Discord is there for. But anyways, all right. So I was just explaining in 1995, I'm going to get back to talking. So in 1995, the PHP was developed. PHP became basically the standard programming language for the next like 10, 15, 16 years for like all web backends. And it wasn't until like the 2010s that you started seeing anything else show up as a real competitor, except maybe Microsoft ASP, but it didn't have the open source community backing that it needed to have the kind of PHP had robust support because it was open source. Anyway, in 1995, Netscape invented JavaScript. Around the same time that Internet Explorer comes out, Netscape decides, well, you know what we need, what web pages really need is interactivity, because it's a little silly that we've got this massive World Wide Web thing taking off and people are using it for like building graphical interfaces on internet forums now, and you know, we've got these graphical interfaces, but there's no interaction with them. So they went and collaborated with Sun Microsystems, which was another big company at the time, that had developed a language called Java that was popular at the time. Still kind of is. And Java's big thing is that Java, instead of compiling into code that runs on your computer, Java, instead of running directly on your computer, Java has a program that is written in C that runs directly on your computer, and then that takes the Java code and then runs it, you know, as a program within the program, which means that you don't have to worry about anything like, you don't have to worry about what kind of computer you're programming for. You don't have to worry about anything like that, because that other program will handle everything as it's running your program. They basically built a standardized interface for programming. And it was nowhere near as efficient as like C. You couldn't build a 3D engine like Quake in it at the time. But you could do this interesting thing that Netscape collaborated with Sun for, called a Java applet, which was Netscape had a version of Java built into it that would download and run a program within the browser called a Java applet written in Java. But Netscape also wanted a version of this that could actually mess with an HTML page itself. So they invented a scripting language called JavaScript. And JavaScript was really cool. JavaScript is basically, what it does is it messes with the text on the page in such a way that it changes what's going on the page. And it can do a lot of really advanced stuff if you really learn it, but we won't get into all of that in this class. Basically, in 1996, they, you know, basically 1996 and 97, they set up this group called, there was this group called ECMA International that does standards for programming languages. And 97, they released something called the ECMAScript standard, which, you know, is the standardized version of JavaScript and TypeScript, the two scripting languages of the internet right now. That, you know, when you make a script, you're supposed to follow the ECMAScript standard for how they work and what's in them. So then, in 1996, they created CSS. So here we are, like 6 years into this. They've just now created CSS. Before CSS, there had been ways to stylize documents. You know, there had been something called style sheets, but they were like very specific to the program. So CSS was, it stands for cascading style sheets. And what it is it's a way to write a document which just, it's a very simple scripting language that all it does is it builds, you know, the look and feel of your page. It tells the browser how HTML should look. And it looks like, if I pull it up right now, it looks like this, right? And so CSS works by basically, this is one of the things we're going to cover in this class today. Anyway, basically what it does is it stylizes your web page for you, and then you see, you know, the web page, and the web page has this stylization to it. And you can stylize multiple pages at once with a single CSS file because it's linked, it's a different file that gets linked from your HTML. Anyway, so the browser words kept going on, and Netscape and Internet Explorer kept trying to add in their own things, where Netscape would add something cool in, and then Microsoft would make a sort of buggier version of it, you know, would try to throw together as quickly as they could a cheap and buggy version of it to try and keep up. And there was all these problems with this that various standards bodies were trying to enforce but couldn't, because Microsoft wouldn't go to the standards that the various other web browsers were doing. Because they were preloaded into Windows, they were very commonly used. You had to go download Internet or Netscape Navigator. But in 2000, there was the .com crash, and Netscape went under, and then we had what was the Internet Dark Age, where the only major browser was Internet Explorer, and Microsoft had no reason to develop the Internet. And so for like 5 years there, we just didn't see any development in this field. Something that I want to kind of stress upon here is if you look back at all of this timeline that I've developed here, 1960 onward, at no point do I say anything about major corporations developing this. I just want to point this out because this is often in the rhetoric of these politicians or whatever, or these companies, when they want the government to do things for them. They always go, oh, we developed the internet, we developed the internet. They are nowhere in this process of like 40 years of developing it. It's 30 years in that you see a commercial entity building HTML, an HTML standard browser. It's 1994 that Netscape comes out. So I just wanted to point that out. Whenever you hear that, that's not entirely accurate. And then when a company was involved in, you know, when a major corporation was responsible for all this development, that's when all the development stopped because there was no competition to push them along. So, you know, take it from someone with a background in economics. Competition good. Anyways, so in 2005, Mozilla Firefox, which had been created from Netscape, the source code for Netscape, took off, and we had the second browser wars. And HTML and CSS and JavaScript, you know, start to really progress again. Because up until that point, the only thing that had really been progressing was PHP for a 5-year period. But in that 5-year period that PHP had been developing, people came out with Wikipedia and MySpace. And the really cool thing about Wikipedia and MySpace is that this had all been done before with web forums and all that. But what they had tried to create was something that we eventually, in 1999, we started calling Web 2.0. This thing where instead of us having these basically web pages that you just look at and someone makes a web page and then a bunch of people look at it, we started to get this shift where you would have Wikipedia where anyone can edit it. Anyone who knows anything can edit it. Fun story, in that HTML standard in like 1990, in the 80s, when they were talking about what became the HTML standard, something they kept talking about was, oh, we could have an encyclopedia that we build collaboratively through CGI scripts, and we could use this encyclopedia, you know, to have a bunch of different experts weigh in, and we could have a free encyclopedia that had a bunch of people building it. And then in Wikipedia comes out in the 2000s, and it's basically what they were talking about in the 80s. I always find that fascinating. But, you know, Wikipedia, MySpace, Facebook, all those basically build this concept of user-driven content, where you use PHP as a backend to take in forms, and the forms build your web content for you. And that is the end of my little bit on, you know, internet history. It only took us, what, 30 minutes to get this far? So does anyone have any questions about that? You can ask them in the, you can go ahead and ask them in the, what's it called? You know, the thing that you ask questions in, the voice chat. If you want to ask them in the text chat or in voice, you can do that. If people want to talk on voice, you can. I think they can hear you. I want to say that you can be heard on whatever. Let me see if I can fix this stupid thing. So does anyone have any questions? Because I can keep going, but you know, if you got questions, you got questions. If you have questions,
So,
you have answers.
I got a real quick question for you. I know I joined in late, but when exactly was the transfer period between Web 1.0 and 2.0? And aren't we at Web 3.0 now?
So that's a good question. The answer is no. I just figured out why OBS isn't working. So basically, the transition between 1.0 and 2.0 is kind of nebulous. We talk about Web 1.0 and 2.0 and 3, like there are these different things that, oh, none of this existed before. But really what was going on was Web 2.0 technology goes back to Usenet. And really that's something that needs to be said, that Web 2.0 technology isn't, you know, super new. It goes back to the 80s. You know, what Web 2.0 really talks about is a shift in the way that the average person is using these programs. I just fixed OBS, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. Oh, Grecius asked a question on YouTube about Al Gore. Okay, so Al Gore, the thing with Al Gore, where he said something that they interpreted as him saying he invented the internet. Al Gore in the 1990s, when he was vice president, was the head of the task force in the presidential office of Bill Clinton to build up all this stuff that was going on. Al Gore was in charge of the government branch that was building the internet from the government perspective and making sure that all these standards were being, you know, developed properly. So when they talk about him working on the internet, then later he got into, later he came on and had this program where they got as many computers in schools as possible, because what was going on was they were realizing that kids would need to learn all this stuff, and they would need to know all this stuff by the 2000s. So they wanted to have as many kids as possible get exposure to computers and learn how to type on them and learn how to use the internet. And, you know, this was this massive initiative that Al Gore spearheaded. So when we talk about Al Gore, you know, being involved in the early internet in the 1990s and the 80s, because he was also a senator in the 80s and he did stuff with that, yes, that is actually accurate, that claim that he made during the 2000 election, that he was heavily involved in the internet. That is accurate. Just a weird bit of history, because we were talking about history, and Grecius asked. So now you know. That's what he was talking about. I see people typing, but no one's saying anything. So does anyone else have any more questions about that before we get into talking about programs that we're going to use in this class? Does anyone else have any questions about history? This isn't really a history presentation, but if you got questions. No? Okay. Well, I see we've got a lot more people in the chat than when I started that whole thing on internet history. We're now getting to the point where I did not get the slides rebuilt in time, so we're gonna wing it from here. So I want to talk about the programs that we need to use for this class, or that I'm going to recommend for this class. And the answer is, the beauty of HTML and CSS and JavaScript is you don't need any programs to actually do it. So if you go open up Notepad, you can just do this in Notepad. And you can just, you know, write an HTML page in Notepad. But if you don't want to use Notepad, and I wouldn't really recommend Notepad, there is another program that I would like to recommend called Notepad++. So you go to your web browser and you type in Notepad++. Here, let me make it bigger so everyone can see. All right, so you go to your web browser, you type in Notepad++, right? And the first thing that comes up is this notepad++web.org website. So you click that, and you go download the latest version. And so if you're on Windows, go ahead and download the latest version of that. It will be useful for all programming going forward. It is extremely useful when you need to just quickly edit a scripting file of any kind. It is a highly recommended program by all programmers of all languages because you don't want to use it to edit, say, C++ or Java code, but it's great for this sort of use. And even if you're programming in Java or something, it's still great because it's good at like just formatting your markup for you. So Notepad++, when you download it, it looks like this. It's got this really nice interface. It will split your code into two separate windows if you ask it to. So here I've got, an HTML page over here and a style page over here, or the CSS for that over here. It has all these cool features. And you can even like hook it in if you really want to. You can hook in all this other stuff. And when I type some HTML, it'll start, it'll start automatically doing things for me. Like, here, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to show you this. Okay, so what it does here is I've got an HTML block. I'll explain these in a bit. I can make it collapse and reshow. I just always thought that was that's so useful. Let me zoom in a little on both of these so that y'all can see them. There we go. All right. Quiz says this takes me back to year 9. All right, so yeah, if you go down and download and install that, you should have enough time by now to have downloaded and installed it. If you're still installing it, that's okay. I'm going to... Okay, this is where it really breaks down. So I'm going to talk about markup languages for a second and just kind of explain how markup languages work in general before we get into HTML. Basically, the way that markup languages work, as I was talking about in the history segment, you would basically have this thing going on where you could have what's called a tag inside of these brackets. And then inside of the tag, you could have what's called an attribute, right? And then you could say that the attribute has a value. And then you could close the tag, and then you could put some content inside of that tag. And then you could have another tag that closes the tag. And that's the basis of anytime you hear about XML or HTML or any markup language, this is the basis of how they work, is that you have tags containing other things, and the tags themselves have attributes. And the idea behind this was that you would be able to nest a bunch of content inside of other content and define various aspects of the content. And when we get to HTML, it becomes defining aspects of the web page and how things look and elements on the page. An element being how we refer to, something like, this title up here is an element. It's a very complex element because it does a lot of things, but, all these things up here, these are all just individual elements on the web page. Heck, I'll even show you this one because we all know this one. So elements on a web page. I mean, like really, when I talk about elements on a web page, I'm talking about, this button here is an element. These words here are an element. This logo up here is an element, and it's all laid out in such a way that you can see it. But anyways, so now let's get into actual talking about the HTML. So if you haven't already, have Notepad++ or anything open, And our workflow here is that we're going to have, see, I've made a directory on my hard drive. So what I want y'all to do is go make a new folder on your hard drive, because we're going to start now with the actual tutorial process. That's the great thing about an HTML class, is more so than any other class, I can just walk you through. Let's make an HTML page. So yeah, go make a folder on your hard drive, and you're going to click New Text Document, right? And it's going to let you take. Oh, by the way, if you're on Linux right now, you don't need Notepad++. Just use gedit, the built-in text editor. The built-in text editor on Linux will do all this for you. If you're on Linux, you know what you're doing. So yeah, Linux is great about this. So yeah, you can name your HTML file anything. So you can name it tutorial. Oh, bit of note about standards. Everything should be lowercase in a text file name. Page2.html. And then you'll get this warning. It says if you change the file name extension, it will become unstable because the file will change its behavior. Click yes that you're okay with doing that, because what it's warning you about when it says, oh, don't change the extension, what it's warning you about is when you change the extension of a file name, you change its behavior. So basically, it'll be opened in your web browser instead of your text editor. So now that you've got this open, you should be able to open it with Notepad++. If you don't have Notepad++, you can also open it with Notepad is not showing up. So what you do is you go down to Open With. In Windows, one of the ways to do this is you go to Open With, choose another app, and every weird programming trick secret, every file ever can be opened with Notepad. It is capable of opening and displaying any file. Now, most files will be garbage for you, though they'll be just nonsense if you don't know how to read the ASCII code that gets spat out as a, if you don't know how to read the text that gets spat out as, values. But Notepad can open every file, and it's a good way to check things for, once you understand how the files actually work. But, I could open it with Notepad that way, or I could go to File, Open in Notepad, and, go find it wherever the heck it is on my folder. I don't know. Anyways, but you really want to open it in Notepad++, because we're working in Notepad++ today. So I'm going to go to webpage.html, which is the one that I already made. And I'm going to talk for a bit. I'm going to delete all this. So HTML, the way that it operates is that you are going to basically build a sort of tree structure, something we call in programming as a tree, out of these little text things that you're going to write down. So the way that you start every HTML document is by typing HTML, and then you're going to go down and you're going to type /HTML inside of these triangular brackets, and then you closed it, and now you have basically the basis of an HTML document. Everything between these two brackets is going to be read as HTML. If you put text down here, it's going to, I cannot tell you what the browser will do because different browsers will do different things. But you don't want to do that. You want to do this. You want to go inside the HTML, and the first thing we're going to build, before we build, so an HTML document gets split into two parts, a head, so we're going to build a head by doing this, the head of the HTML document, and then the body. And once again, we're going to open and close our tags. So you've got this open tag that is the tag, and then / the name of the tag to close the tag. So before we talk about the body is basically where all the content is going to be, but we need to talk about the head first, because the head is where you get all this really interesting, the head is where you can make stuff happen that is not in the body. So let me go check some other thing and tell you, oh, it is not written down. All right, so because my slideshow is messed up, I didn't talk about this part. This is how you learn to program. I don't remember how to do the title of an HTML page because nobody actually remembers how to do this stuff unless they do it every day. And title is not something you do very often. So this is the main skill that I want to convey in this class today. How to look things up on Google. So HTML title. So what you really are learning when you learn how to program is how to look things up on the right sites. I'm going to go to this site because I'm going to recommend this site later. Is how to go look things up. So the title of the, see if you look at this, there's this is Mozilla's website, the guys that make Firefox. They have this awesome website called the Mozilla Web Docs, the MDN, Mozilla Developer Network Web Docs, or MDN. And what you do is you go on this site and you can see someone has already, laid out how all of these things are supposed to work for you in this really nice, thing that explains way more than you're ever going to need. Like they've got this example of a title of a page could be awesome, interesting stuff. Wow, let's take that and let's just copy that and not even change it. Oh, I can't do that. I don't like whatever I just did. I don't like it. Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, they've got even a button to properly copy it for you. So now I have a web page, and when we open this web page later, it's going to be titled Awesome, Interesting Stuff. In fact, I'm going to do this right now. All right, so this is the thing about the head. We'll go back to the head later when we talk about CSS and all that. But you can do all sorts of stuff in the header that includes things that change the way that your document works, basically. But first, we're going to make our there you go. Oh, whoops. All right, so first I want to talk about a few tags. Yeah, that's good text for a web page, right? Yeah. All right, so we're going to talk about the tags that make up the body. So what you want to learn is the H1 tag, first of all. These are very old style. These are not used as much in modern programming, but they're still useful if you want to make a basic web page. So in your body, this is, like I said, all the stuff that's going to be on the screen. So you want to go to your H1 tag. Or you want to make a tag that's called H1 and fill it with like a title for your web page, right? And it can be whatever, but you're going to make this title for your web page inside of this H1 tag, and you are going to like just put something inside of it. We're not going to talk about the attributes of it right now. And then you close it, right? And then you go to a new line. By the way, if you do this, the browser will still read it. If you do this, the browser will still read it properly. The reason I'm doing this, I should talk about this for a second. The reason I've got these indentations here, which Notepad++ will automatically do for you, the reason I'm going to new lines and doing indentations is human readability. And this is really important to learn how to properly indent your code, because a lot of people who will help you will only read your code to help you if it's properly indented. Like when I was teaching like classes and doing tutoring and all that, I would, even when I was like being paid by the university as a TA, I would refuse to read students' code unless it was indented. So they would come to me for help and I'd be like, well, I'm not reading that, it's not indented. But anyway, so you want to do that. The H1 tag, that is the heading 1 tag is what that really is. That is the equivalent of if you go into, say, Google Docs and you click up here at where it says, if you go into Google Docs and you click up here where it says the style, that's basically you've got normal text here, and then you've got heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. These are my custom headings, by the way. Aren't they pretty? Anyways, I'm seeing I'm wrong. Anyway, so there's heading 1. And now I want to make a paragraph, so I'm going to take P, make a P tag for paragraph. And then I'm just going to type in, you know, some text. I already did it. So here's this text. You can make whatever text you want here. And yeah, there's your text so far. I think this looks like a good web page so far. Let's go open it up. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the file folder where you are viewing this stuff. I'm going to do this so it's easy to see what I'm doing. So you're going to go to the file folder where you put this, because remember I said make a new file folder. And you're going to click on your web page, and then automatically, oh, wrong one. You're going to click on, wait, why is it not doing what it needs? Oh, I forgot to save it. I'm like, why is it doing that? All right, so you're going to click on your, you're going to save your web page in whatever you're using to edit it. And then you're going to click on your HTML page. And then your browser is going to open it, and it's going to look like this. And this is, like I said, what I love about HTML is that this can be typed in like a minute, you know, to make a whole website. So the next tool I'm going to show you is something, you know, before we go back to editing more, I want to show you something really cool. So what you do is you right-click, and your browser will have, when you right-click, something like Inspect or Inspect Element or Developer Tools, and you can click it, and it will open this thing. And this thing is really useful if you're going to do any sort of web development, because it will show you the raw HTML. And this is why HTML, knowing HTML is really important, even if you're doing something really abstracted, like building something in React or whatever, where you never touch the HTML, because I can see what HTML is right here, what the HTML, the web page or the browser is actually looking at, is laid out for me, and it's explained what exactly it's doing. The other way to get into this is you go up into this little controls up here in the upper right corner, and you go down to, in Chrome, it's more tools. I forget what it is in Firefox. It used to be Firebug until Firebug became the built-in thing in the browser. But you go down to Developer Tools in Chrome, and you click it, and once again it comes up, and you can click this thing, and this little button right here will let you inspect an element. So now you know how to do that. That's a very important part of this process. All right, so we've got our web page so far. Let me talk about a few more tags. Let's do the H2 tag to make a smaller heading, and let's call this heading interesting other. No. I have a div here. So now I'm going to show you a tag called a div. So H2 is heading 2. There is also like H3, H4, H5. You know, you could do all sorts of these. And once you learn CSS, you can develop even more of these. So you got this next tag I want to show you is your div. So a div is, it stands for division. It stands for a web page division. I can make really interesting stuff happening here. All right, so I go back to my page, and I do this, and I refresh it, and we can see that I've got this div down here. Now, right now, it doesn't look that different from this. It doesn't look like different from the paragraph tag. There's a lot of differences in the div tag. I'm going to talk about span first, actually. Yeah, I just realized I should tell you about span before I show you div. So let's talk about spans. So forget about divs for a second, we'll talk about spans. All right, so I'm going to make a span tag around this word, this last word here, right? So span tags are interesting. Span tags are basically, they allow you to wrap a small bit of text in a tag and then mess with that bit of text. And this is where I'm going to talk about attributes for a second. Because what I can do with this is I can change the color of the text to red. Let's go with red. I like red. And so I've made red text. And if I go click on this, did I save it? Okay, I had forgotten the attributes. HTML text color attributes. See, this is the thing. If you forget things, you can just do it. What is this? I don't remember this. See, this is what I'm talking about, when you don't use these things every day. Alright. Yeah, but I don't want to get into style tags yet. Hang on a second. Let me figure out what the attribute I was using was, because there is an attribute called... Yeah, see, that's right. Is that not working anymore? Okay, I don't know what I'm thinking here, because I remember Span being able to do this, but apparently there's a tag called font. I've never seen this one. I don't remember seeing this one before. It's really weird. This is like Mandela effect on me. But anyway, the thing I was trying to demonstrate was that you can mess with the text there and do that. But the tag I was trying to use to show you that is span, and I'm trying to figure out why span doesn't do that. But that's for another day. That's what happens when you go through a hurricane instead of preparing your class. Anyways, all right. Sorry if this is too chaotic for you guys. All right, so you've got your web page here so far. So what I wanted to show you guys about the div tag and what makes it kind of interesting. Hang on a second. Apparently, Notepad++ is frozen. Give it like 5 seconds. It does this sometimes. I don't know why it does this. So you got your div tags, right? And I've got multiple div tags. So remember I was talking about attributes just now, how in markup languages, elements have attributes. So what you want to do is take this element and give it an attribute called width equals 100 pixels. And then give that an attribute called border equals, what is the border element of a HTML? Alright, so we got attributes. We got some attributes. See, I'm coming down to a site that I wouldn't normally recommend. Let's see. Div attributes. HTML. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna come down here. Yeah, see, this is actually what you want to learn. What I'm doing right now is how to like look things up. Because, like I said, I'm not remembering some very specific things about this. Because I haven't done this very low-level stuff in a very long time. Which is kind of annoying. And it's only showing me how to do it the right way, not the way that's good for teaching. So, I'm going to go ahead and just show you this. I'm just going to show you this part. I guess I'm going to move on from trying to just show you it as this, but if you put width equals 100 px in a div, it will turn your next thing. Did I write it wrong? Maybe? I'm not even sure. Yeah, I don't know why it's not doing what I want it to. Alright, so I'm going to move on a second from trying to show you this with just basic attributes, because apparently I don't remember how they work properly, and I didn't have time to review this. So I'm going to show you this different version of how to do it. And then this is where we're going to get into the stuff that I've actually done recently. So you do the style element, you do width equals 100 px, and then that's what I was trying to make happen. So I've made width equal 100 px. And you can see if you scroll over that this div is like the whole size of the area that it's in. It spans across this entire thing. It has a width of 100% of the page. And this div has a width of 100 pixels. So it is much smaller. It is this little box down here, and everything inside of it got scrunched in to fit it. So one of the differences between paragraph and div, your p and your div tags, is that your p tag is a much more formatted tag. And real quick, I'm going to show you guys what I was trying to do with the span, because I'm over here. This becomes very wishy-washy, this whole thing. Alright. So I come down here to span, and I do that. And this is what I was trying to demonstrate earlier. So your paragraph tags are built in such a way that they are not meant for, they're meant to be a very old standard Web 1.0 way of doing things. Most websites that are developed nowadays do not use the p tag, or really even the H1 or H2 tag. Now, they still use those, but they don't use the p tag. They use the span tag and the div tag, and the only reason we still use the H1 and H2 tags is because you can link them. If you've ever seen that thing where you have the URL where there's the pound sign and then there's a thing there, the reason that exists is because you can reference an H1 tag and it will automatically scroll down to it. It's called an anchor, but I won't get into that too much right now. What I really wanted to show you guys was the style tag, or the style attribute, and all these things that you can do with the style attribute. So now that I've got all this stuff up here, I'm going to make some divs, and they're going to be, this style of this div is going to be style equals 100 px. Oh no, width 100 px. Height 100 px. Okay, if you stop following along because I was getting wishy-washy, you should follow along with this. Let me check back at something that's done. Notice that I'm taking this from a CSS file. That's going to become relevant in a moment here. Position fixed. You know what? I'll do that in a second. I'll show you guys that in a second. The first div. What I really want to show you is border : 1 px solid red. Let's go with red again. Red is a nice color. And then let's go and copy this and paste it and make the second div. Alright, so this is something I gotta show you guys before we move on to CSS about HTML. Alright, so if you notice, the first div is stacked on top of the second div, right? And in the code, it's like this. And even if I do this, even if I go and I put them both on the same line, they are not going to be on the same line. Because HTML, your web browser, does not do anything to read the spaces and the tabs in your HTML. The only way that you can move elements around on the page is by putting them in these tags. And the thing about the div tag is it has something called blocking. And blocking is important to understand in the layout of a HTML page because it has what's called, not blocking, I'm calling it blocking, but the word is, it has what's called block style. It is a block element. as opposed to an inline element. So let's go back and remember I was talking about span and how span can just be thrown in anywhere, and span is this important tag because you need to know because it can be thrown in anywhere and doesn't have any rules. So I made a copy of these two divs, and I've given them both the span tag instead of the div tag. And now when I go refresh the page, oh, you know what? I should label them. I should label them properly so that we can see this better. When I do this, notice that they are completely different in the way that they get laid out. It ignored the height and the width, and all it did was circle them in this text, or was circle them in a, what's it called, in a border. All it did was put the border on them. So, which you can't see because it's not displaying very big in there. So I'm going to make it bigger in case y'all are not seeing that border. It clicks to me. I'll make it huge. It's huge. There we go. Now you can see it. Now everyone can see it. All right, so if you notice when I did it in spans, it didn't care about the width or the height. All it cared about was that border, and it put them right next to each other. It put them on the same line. The span tag creates an inline element, and the difference between an inline element and a block element is an inline goes on the line with everything else and doesn't create its own spacing or anything. It doesn't do anything special. It just puts that element like it's text on a line. You can even see that it didn't even make the line taller. It's, you know, taking this part and it's overlapping it with that border. Whereas the div element is a block element. So what we can kind of do here is we can fudge this a little because we can do the display style of an element as something called the inline block. And we can do that to both, right? And now they have done something. So what I just did there, where I made the first span and the second span into inline block elements instead of inline or block elements. Inline block basically does that whole, it can have any sizing you want thing of a block element, but it keeps it on the same line just like an inline element. So I've also noticed that they're kind of over here, and they're kind of I'm not going to get into how to fix that. You can figure out how to fix that on your own. I showed you how to look things up. I'm going to move on. So what I want to show you with the divs, now that you know that you can do stuff like that with them and have all these layouts of them, I'm going to go ahead and delete these spans because I'm not going to use them for anything anymore. And I'm going to show you something called no, that's not what I'm looking for. Oh, that's the wrong CSS. That's not the one I was looking at. There. I'm going to show you something called fixed positioning. So we've got our two divs, and we like the way that they look, but, you know, once again, I want them to be, you know, I want them to be side by side. That would look better if they were side by side, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap them in another div, first off. Because if I don't do this, then something weird is going to happen. But I'm going to wrap them in another div, right? And I'm going to add, at the beginning of my style attribute, position, not fixed, but absolute. I'll get into the fixed position in a second. So I added position absolute to this div, right? And now I'm going to add two more elements. Top, or not elements, stylings. I'm going to put top at 0px. And left, because we define these in terms of the left or right or top or bottom, 0px for this one, right? Now on the other one, I'm going to put top, still 0px, left 75px, all right? So go ahead and make a guess as to what this bit of code right here is going to make happen inside of this div that we just created. And I save it, and I click refresh. And, what did I do wrong? This is kind of the problem with it. You know what? Oh, you know what it probably was? I probably forgot how positioning works. I hate when this happens. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to look up MDN position element. This is a CSS tag that we're doing, by the way. Everything that I'm doing in this style tag, it's just CSS inside of it. You're just putting CSS inside the style tag where it, where it works like this. So what I really wanted to do, according to Mozilla's thing, is what I really wanted to do was use the relative thing. So I'm going to do position relative. And this is what I wanted to show you. Whoops. Oh, is that because that's because of this, right? No. Why is it doing that? All right, so what it's doing is they're running into each other. Oh. Yeah, okay, I see what I did wrong. All right. I'll show you what that was in a moment, because you guys need to know about that. All right, so... It's doing this thing on me that I don't remember why it's doing this. All right, you know what it's doing? Oh, you know why it's doing that? I think I know why it's doing that. I'm not actually sure why it's doing that. Like I said, the stuff that I'm going to go over in like 5 minutes when I'm done with this is the stuff that I've actually worked with recently. And then all this other stuff is just weird crap that I've done, that I'm doing right now. So I'm not sure why it's doing this particular behavior on me. But that is the thing in programming, is sometimes these things do behaviors that you just don't expect them to do. And like I said, I didn't have time to review between scheduling the class and the hurricane. Box model. Steliferous says I'm supposed to do it with box law. Well, I'm glad y'all are getting this, at least.
That was about the display inline block thing.
What?
Div has more access to the box model than span does. So
right.
That's why you can do things with div like change what gets shown.
Do you remember why it's doing this, where it's I'm stupid. I just realized the reason why it's doing that. It's because I've got it, relative, and it's doing it relative to the other thing in the box. It's doing it relative to the space it would be at. So what would happen if I do this? All right, I'm going to show you guys another tag, another thing you can do in HTML. And actually, this works in a lot of markup languages. I want to see what happens when I get rid of this div, because I was putting it there for a reason, but now I'm not sure I needed it. All right, so if you look, I did as if I was opening a tag, I did the triangular brackets, an exclamation point, and then 2 minus signs or hyphens or whatever you want to call them. And then on the other side of that div tag, I did 2 minus signs and a closing square bracket, or that triangular bracket. And I've closed these inside of here, and Notepad++ has automatically turned them into a different text style. That's called a comment. I just made that disappear from the actual page. It won't be working on the page anymore. All right, so it didn't make any change. I didn't need that. All right, so to just show you guys that this is a thing, I'm going to put all that stuff in there. Ta-da! I made things disappear. So yeah, that's a thing to know, that you can just, you can do comments. So you can go like, is a big section of the page. This is the way to mark hey, I've got a section of the page that is distinct from the rest of it, and I need to be able to find it easily. So I put this big thing in here, and you can do this. Just remember that this is a thing that exists, that you can do this. this is very common to have a bunch of comments that are just a big block to tell everyone, hey, look at this. I'm going to go ahead and leave that in here. So I'm going to move on to, let's see if there's anything else I should talk about. Oh, I do want to talk about tables. So I'm going to make a new little section. H3. I'm going to tell you about tables real quick. You should not be using tables for anything but their purpose. But I just want to point out that there are things like this in HTML. So this is called the table tag. It's got a table and a body. And let's see, I can do, what is it? Table row, table dividend. Yeah, this came up a lot in, like, when I was in college programming like spreadsheet type stuff for my various courses in business classes, because my second degree was in business. So you do this. Okay, so what I've done here, so a table is made up of a few different sections. In fact, you know what? I'm even going to format them the way you're supposed to, just so you can see what I'm doing here so well. Tables are made up of a few different sections. So you've got your table tag that's surrounding all of this stuff. And you have a tag called thead, and thead whoops. All right, so you have this T-head and this T-body, right? And you fill them with this TR tag. TR stands for table row. TD stands for table dividend, or table division. And you can take these table things, and you can type in, this is part of the reason why they're not really in, like, widespread use anymore, is because they're, because of the way that they end up kind of, what's the word, being a mess. They end up being a mess to use, and there are better ways to do a lot of the stuff that people use them for. But if you're trying to lay out content that actually belongs in like a spreadsheet or something, this is the way to go for it. It mostly comes up in business programming, but I'm just kind of building one for you guys right now in front of you because I want you guys to be able to see that this is a real tag that can be used for when you might need it. And then I'll move on to CSS because I'm tired of talking about HTML itself. I think y'all get the general gist. I'll take questions in a second, but all right, so I save it and I do that. I click refresh. And as you can see, I now have a table down here, and this table has all of these individual like cells in it that do this. The point of the table head is that when you start scripting these things, the head functions differently from the body. You can do things to, oh crap, I forgot to close. This is a fun thing about HTML is that sometimes it will still display properly even if you write it wrong. No other programming is like that. I mean, if you even consider HTML programming, but anyways, so you can see that I got this there. Another weird quirk of, interesting quirk of tables is that I can have a TD and just empty TD and not put anything in there. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to put TD1, 2, 3. Okay, so now I've got rows that are labeled, and I've saved, and I hit that, and now we go down and look at this, and my table down here has columns A, B, and C, and rows 1, 2, and 3. So what I just did there is, yeah, it's got an empty cell up here, that doesn't have anything in it and thus will not be populated with anything. So now I'm going to show you how to use this thing over here in this really cool way. Let's say that I decide I want to see what happens if there's a ton of text. I want to show you guys what happens if there's a ton of text in one of these center things, right? So I'm just going to... All right, so what I just did there is I clicked on it, and I went over to my sidebar. And you guys can't see it as well because it's not zoomed in like the page is. But I clicked inside of the tag. I double-clicked inside, and it gave me the option to edit the HTML in there. So this is the amazing usefulness of these developer tools, is that not only can you see like the page as the HTML that's being rendered and see these little like highlights that it does, but you can also edit them to make interesting things happen. So I can show you also that I can do this other tag that you guys don't know about, is that the TD element has an attribute called, let's see, what is it called? What was the attribute called? There's an attribute that makes the cell like twice. Does anyone remember that actually knows HTML here? Or should I just look it up? I'll just look it up. HTML table cell takes call span. Okay, you've got call span and row span. So yeah, let me show you this. This is kind of neat. You can do this thing where if you notice it's been centered in the page like that. And let's say I decide that I want to make this table really wacky. And so I'm going to do call span equals 3. Oh, wow, I did something weird. And now I'm going to add row span equals 4. Make it really weird. Okay, so now I've just like made this stupid thing like ridiculous, and I can even take the HTML of this actual part of the table here. Let's see, where is that? Edit as HTML, and I can select all and cut, and then go up to here, and then edited HTML, select all, paste, and now I've just massively messed up my table. But if I hit refresh, it goes back to the way it's supposed to be. So yeah, that's the use of your browser tools over here. And they're going to come even more useful when you get to the fact that it's also displaying your style sheet down here. In fact, let me show you something about the style sheet operations down here as we segue into that. So you can't see it if you don't have like good display of mine, but basically below the HTML, it's got this styles thing going on. And if you don't see it, it might be in a tab called styles. But anyways, I can just double click it. Why are you not letting me double click it right now? No, let me try this again. TD. Huh. Oh, because it's not letting me edit something that's in the browser itself. Okay, so I can double click the element.style thing, right? And I can do border 4 pixels solid red. And now I have a red border around one of my cells. And that's kind of the beginning of where you start to get into CSS. So I'm going to shift into modes into CSS. So just to make sure that I don't do something stupid on you guys here, I'm going to look up the style tag. And I need to stop clicking W3 schools. I used to recommend them. They have not been very good lately, so I'm recommending Mozilla. W3 schools, when they're working for you, is good for the very basic old style, but they are like several years out of date at this point. Bleh. Anyway, so here I am on Mozilla's developer docs, and they're talking about the style element, and they're showing a way to use it. Basically, they've shown the they're showing a words are not coming out of my mouth. They're showing an example of how to use this thing, right? So I'm going to come in here. And remember how I said the head can be used for all sorts of cool stuff? This is where the style tag comes in. So you're going to put a tag up in your header. You're going to put in this big old tag area called the style tag. And you don't even need to like give it any attributes, though, you know, you could give it the attribute. In fact, I'm even going to give you an attribute and say, let's put that in there, because that's the technically correct way to do it. We're going to do style type equals text/CSS. All right. So I've gone in my style tag and I've given it an attribute called type, and I've set the value of the attribute to text/CSS. Right. So now we're going to go in and we're going to write. Remember I had this stuff down here that was in this style blocks? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put down TD, right? Then I'm going to open a curly bracket, close it down here. Good practice is to close your brackets when you open them. Just go down and close them, just so you've got them closed and you don't accidentally forget to. All right, so I'm going to say border. I'm going to do what I did in that browser tool. 4px solid. I'm going to make it purple this time. All right, so border 4px solid purple. By the way, this thing we've just transitioned to is called CSS. It's cascading style sheets. You can put them in the style tag. I'll show you a different way to do it in a moment. But I just did td border 4px solid purple, and I saved the document. And if I go back to my web page, I have made every instance of the TD tag on the web page have a giant purple border. Oh, before I move on, I'm going to go check. Is there anyone with any questions about the HTML stuff? I should go check that before we do that. Nice thumbnail, says A. Yeah, give you the head. Yeah, I gave you guys head. Let's see. Yeah, when you press F12. Oh, Gracious just pointed out, yeah, if you go to the browser and you hit F12, that's the other command for doing that. You can also show view page source, and it will open another thing. It will show you this crazy view of your page source. We're not going to mess with that today because you don't really need to use it. That's an old feature that is kind of dated at this point because of these nice browser tools over here, but that is another thing you can do. It will output the entire page source with no fancy scripting to it. Anyway, so I've done that. Now, let's say I want to do this for multiple different elements, and I want to define what the elements are. Let's say I want to have red borders on some of these elements. I don't know why red is my color today. It just is. Border color. So, actually, border width 4px. Border style solid. Oh, whoops. Red. See what I just did there? I did something different from that. So I'm going to do this. You up here. You had a blue border, or you had a red border that was a bad color. Actually, no. I'll show you this down here first. So let's say I want this row here. I want to surround the headed row, the heading row. No, I want to surround the entire table head with a red border. So I just made a thing in my style sheet. Instead of a tag name, I put dot and then the word red border in no caps, no spaces, right? Very important that it's no caps, no spaces, right? So I put dot red border. And I said, you know, that's what that is. So now I'm going to come here and I'm going to put class equals red border, right? So I've taken what was beyond that dot up there and I've put it in there inside of a class attribute. The class attribute is really important to understand that that exists. This is where CSS and JavaScript are going to come in here, and this will be very important to understand this one. So I can do that to multiple things. I could do that to this one here too. And I could do that to this TD that already has the purple border. And I could do this to this div over here that had this red border. This one was the one with the red border, right? Yeah, it's the one with the red border. And in fact, I'm going to give this one a red border. I'm going to give everything a red border. I'm going to give lots of red borders, right? If I go in, watch I've formatted it wrong and it'll look stupid. But, yeah, I formatted something wrong. Oh, that's right. What did I do wrong? So I did something wrong down here. Okay, so that doesn't actually work with that, what I was looking at there. But as you can see, I have given this the red border class, and it has a red border. I tried to give these the red border class, and it didn't work. And there's a specific reason, but it worked for this one. So let me talk about why it did and didn't work. So the reason it worked here, what it did here was it added this thing, and it told the browser, hey, go apply this piece of CSS code up here to this element right here that has this class. And it applied it. So down here on this one, the reason it didn't apply it is actually that it did, except for, if you remember in the CSS, in the HTML, I gave it style equals, and then I defined a border. So you look down in my developer tools, and red border, the .red border class, is all crossed out. It's all there, but it's all crossed out because things that are defined in your style tag take precedence. Which can be really useful if you want to override something that's in your CSS.
You okay, man?
I've been coughing on that all night. I'm a lot better now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something coughing in my throat. And that last one, that big cough, that was me coughing it up. To be gross for you for a second. Anyway. So there's how to do your CSS on your things. The other way that you can apply CSS to things. All right, so I'm going to use a number sign or a pound sign or whatever you want to call it, or a hash, whatever you want to call this. And I'm going to say my main title. Notice that I've used camel case. That's another way to write these. I wrote it like this because it's an ID and not a class, but anyways. Let's say I want to do font size. How about make it really big? Let's make it 32px. It's going to be huge. Color. I don't know why it's color and not font color. It seems like it should be color dark green. Actually, now I'm going to show you guys another way to do this. Alright. So if you guys know RGB tags, you can do RGB, right? So you do pound sign, and then R, and then a G, and then a B. So this is hexadecimal. This is a hexadecimal representation of a RGB color. This is the 12-bit version. You can also do a 16-bit version, or a 32-bit version of it. No, 24-bit version. I prefer to just do the 12-bit version because you don't need 24 bits of color in a web page normally, unless you want to get really specific with your colors. So I've given it, you know, red is 0, green is A, and blue is 0, so that's going to be a very green thing. Font size. Font. Underline. font style underline. I don't remember if that's the correct tag. I don't care. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go my great web page ID equals that thing I just wrote, my main title. Unless I'm using copy paste. You got to learn how to use Control C and Control V when you're doing this. All right, so there's my web page. There, I did a thing. Now let's see what got. That's interesting. I think 32 pixels. Yeah, it didn't look like it changed the size because 32 pixels is the apparently the default size for an H1 block is 32 pixels. I just found that out. I never use the default size. I rewrite them. So we've got this thing rewritten, right? All right, so I've done that with my H1. Let me show you something else interesting you can do now. So that's an H1, right? And if I just replace the H1 with div, right? We do this thing that now the formatting has changed slightly because I'm not relying on the existing formatting for an H1 tag. But it still has the formatting that I applied because I changed the class, or I have an idea or a class applied to it. And you can make headings and stuff and labels without having that. So I'm going to call us done with the HTML of this for now and go on a little more about your CSS and some of the cool stuff you can do with it. So I told you that .red border. I made the .red border thing, right? And I showed you some of this stuff with that. So here I've got a div with the .red border and a section with the .red border, right? So let's say I want to make this div with the, I don't like the way that this div with the red border works. And I've decided that I want my divs with red borders to look differently. I want them specifically to have italicized text. All right, so there's div.redborder, font style is italic. Okay, so remember that I applied red border to these ones and it didn't apply the border because they had it in the style tag. Now we have the first div has this italic text. Why do you not have italic text? That's a good question. Do I have someone saying the text style there? Oh, that's right. It's only red bordered. Oh, no. Okay, never mind. That's the heading. That's why it's not saying. I'm like, why does this div not have it? Well, because it's not a div. So my div here has italic text because it's of class red border. But this has class red border, and it doesn't have italic text because it's not a div. It's a TD. So now we've seen that little trick. But let's say I want... I'm not too into that, and I am tired of all these having, you know, they're not red bordered. Or I'm tired of all these not being italic. I want these to be italic, right? I want some of this to be italic. So, TD, I did .red border, then a space, and then TD. And now I'm going to make that font style italic. Okay. And now I've made these italic. Because if you remember, way, way back when I was messing around with this, I went into the TR. I went into this TR and this TR. And I made them have class red border. But it wouldn't let me apply a border to a TR. I didn't like that. So... But it did apply the red border class. And so now it's looking, hey, these are TDs inside of an element with the red border class. Let me give them that styling you just said to give them. So what this does is, okay, so now what you can do is you can have some delineator, like a class or whatever, and some other delineator after a space. Anything that's inside the first thing, anything of the type of the second thing that's inside the first thing will now get whatever style you just put in here. So let's say I want to do a background color now. What would be more common for this is a background color. And let me make the background color, I'll make it black, and I'll make the text white. So I'm making black background, white text on red border TDs, or TDs that are inside an element that has the class red border. And as you can see, black and white. And that's very common with tables to have an alternate, for the TRs. And then you alternate back and forth between the two styles of TR, and then it does that. And I think there's a way to make that go faster, but anyway. Let's see. Do I want to show you guys? I think I'm going to show you guys one more HTML tag, and then we're going to move on to a little bit of CSS, or a little bit of JavaScript. So there's something called an iframe, and these are less and less useful. They are not the way you're supposed to do this anymore. You're supposed to use Ajax, but I've used them recently. I helped someone on their senior project, and they were trying to use jQuery for something, and I told them, well, why don't you just use an iframe? And they freaked out, realizing, yeah, the iframe was the best way to go for what they were doing. So, got an iframe. And I'm going to springboard into the next thing with this iframe. Whoops. So, if we look at the iframe on the MDN docs, we see that iframe is an inline frame element, and it has all these things, but it has this source out thing at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and copy just this part of what they've got here, just so we know what this is, and we know we're not doing this wrong. So it has a width attribute and a height attribute, and I'm going to reformat this a little bit because it's not pretty, and a source. Right? Now, source and href tags are going to be interesting for you guys. I'm going to go back to my file browser. I'm going to look at the files, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. And I'm going to make. I was deleting a file that was empty, by the way. Like don't delete the file that you're making. If you did that, just hit Control-Z and it'll undo. But I'm going to go do what I was talking about earlier. You take a text document, make a new text document, and you name it. I don't know. I'm going to name mine page2.html. Yeah, sure, whatever. It's going to complain that I've named it html.html. I ignore it. Do it anyway. And I'm going to make the source for this page2.html. And I'm going to go ahead and open page2.html. But no, I don't want to open Task Manager right now. Alright, I'm going to go in and mess with page 2. Double click it, and go into it, and now we've got a blank HTML page. Let's go back over this. HTML pages, you've got your head. We're not going to use the head for anything here. We're just going to have a head. And that's a good way to review how an HTML page is made. We're going to have a body. We're going to have a close HTML tag. And we're going to do this. We're going to have, remember we've got the h1 tag. We're going to say, this is a page key tag, yo dog, I heard you like pages, so here's a page within your page. Close the p tag. So we close the p tag. All right, so I have this set up now where I'm going to do this. All right, so I'm going to take this iframe here and I'm going to put, instead of having another tag that's iframe and then close iframe, I'm going to put a space at the end and then a slash, and that's going to close the tag for me. I'm also going to show you one more tag over here. I'm going to go here and I'm going to put br space slash. This could also be done like this. This is the more proper way to do it. You don't need the space slash, but it's proper to put that there. Space slash means this is a tag that is not going to have anything inside of it. It's just going to be open and closed before it has anything inside of it. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and I'm going to save this. And so now I've got this 300 by 200 iframe with page2.html as its source. So I'm going to go back. I hit this. And now I have loaded the other page inside of the page. And I want you to understand this. This is not like I loaded the HTML into the HTML document. This is, the HTML document has a window inside of it, a separate, unique window that can load other pages. And in fact, I can even do something where I do, it might not let me do this, but source equals www.google.com, and it doesn't like me doing that, but you see, I can make the iframe try to load other things, and what you can do is, I haven't showed you guys the A tag. All right, so I haven't showed you guys the A tag yet. You can make this thing, you control this thing with the A tag. So I'm going to talk about the A tag real quick. So I'm going to take some words. I'm going to have an A tag here, right? I should have gone over this earlier, but I didn't. I'm going to close it over here. All right, so I've got the A tag around Celestia, right? Celestia is an AI. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have an href. I'm going to use the href attribute to link http://www. I'm going to link the most powerful AI I know of. So I've put this tag here called the A tag around a word, and I've put href equals Google, right? And now I've clicked that, and I'm going to reload the. I'm going to save the page. I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to reload it, and now you can see that it's become blue and underlined, which means it's a hyperlink, right? So I click it, and it takes me to google.com. All right, now let me show you a weird quirk of this. A is going to be a very important tag for you from now on because that is the link tag. There's a bunch of reasons why it's A and not link. There is another tag called link. Don't use that for this. That does something completely different. But A is the tag that you use when you want to create a link within your text. A is the central tag of the hypertext protocol. It is the hypertext of the hypertext. It is, and it's why they call it hyperlinks, because they're links within the document that quickly take you to something else. So let's say I don't want to actually load the other page. Let's say I want to do something else here. I'm going to go back to the iframe example, because I'm kind of remembering. I know there's a way to do this, but I don't remember the exact way to do this. It might be iframe as link target. Okay, so if you look at this, so here's what I was talking about. Okay. It's name. All right, so here's what I was talking about. So I just looked that up. Target equals, I'm going to say my iframe, and I'm going to do that, right? I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to say that in my iframe, name equals my iframe. So I saved this. Now, you see what I did there is that I made a name for my iframe and a target for it. Right? So now you see that I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this. I'm going to go into the sidebar here and just hide some elements so that they're not, they're getting in the way. They're getting in the way of us seeing what's at the lower part of the page. Why is that still down there? Okay, that doesn't work like I thought it would. You know what I'm going to do instead? I'll just take this and drag it down to here. There we go. Yeah, that sidebar, it's very useful. You can drag and drop tags to different parts of the page even. Okay, so now I can see it all on one page. All right, so here's my inline frame, throw in there. Oh, I told you I showed you the BR tag and then I didn't show what it did. You see how this is on two different lines? The BR tag is, BR stands for break. It goes to the next line. Yeah, that's how you're supposed to do, because enter doesn't do anything. That's how you're supposed to make new lines within text. All right, so I've got Celestia here, and it links to google.com. But the target was my iframe. So I linked to google.com, and the target was my iframe. And google.com has specific code that prevents it from being loaded in an iframe. So it won't load, but that's what it's supposed to do, is it's supposed to load whatever you put in there. So now we've got this. I am going to clean up my explosion of tabs that I've got going on here. All right, so now we've got all this. And this is where I'm going to get into the idea of using a separate CSS document. So rather than looking back at my other documents to just copy it, I'm going to once again show you link CSS file. All right, so you can do this a couple different ways. You used to do this by style sheets. The common way to do this nowadays is with the link element. It used to be the style tag, but now they want you to use the link tag, right? And remember what I said, like don't use link for hyperlinks. It doesn't do that. It does something different. This is what it does. Link as a tag tells the browser, hey, go load this other page. All right, so I'm going to say style.css is going to be the name of my thing, right? And then I'm going to go create, you guys know the deal. You create a text document. When you're naming it, you delete the part that says .txt. You make it something.css. It doesn't matter what it's called, just as long as .css is how it ends, right? So I've made a .css document right here. And
on that link, don't you need the closing one too?
On a link, yeah, you're supposed to have the closing tag, obviously. Anytime you open a tag, you should have a closing tag. You are right. I don't know who just said that, but whoever said that, you're right. All right, so you've got style.css, you've opened it and you closed it, and you've got relative style sheet. So you've got href, your HTML reference, or your HTTP reference, as style.css, or whatever you named your file. And then you've got your rel, or relationship, or relative, as a style sheet. So now I'm going to take everything that I put inside of these style tags. I don't need it there anymore. I'm going to I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut, to copy it over. And then I'm going to go over. And this is one of the reasons why I recommend Notepad++. It lets you do this. I have opened my style sheet. You can do this by, I forget the actual command to make this happen. But here, let me even find it for you guys so you can know how to do this. A lot of IDEs will do this for you. You can make a separate view. Where is it at? I don't know. I don't remember how to do this. If you guys, does anyone know what the actual command in Notepad++ is to make this appear? Anyway, the point is I've got my style sheet open over here, my .css file open over here, and I can paste it in here. I can use Shift Tab to untab and make it all nice like it's supposed to look. So I have two separate files here. I now have style.css. You can name it whatever you want. And I now have this link over here that is linking. This link tag links style.css, the style sheet, from my HTML document. So now, notice that I deleted all that CSS that I was writing. But if I click refresh, all the CSS is still being applied. Because, see, it's right there. It's still there. Because even though it's not in the head, even though I took it out of the head here, it's still in this other file that I have linked. And that's how you use HTML and CSS. That is the basis for making a web page. So now I'm going to just do something for a bit to show you guys like the proper way to like lay out a web page real quick. And then I'm going to show you guys a little bit of JavaScript. But so let's see. I'm going to go delete some of this stuff. I'm going to turn you back to an H1. Right? I'm going to turn my H1 back to an H1. I'm going to get rid of this stuff with the iframe. We're not going to use the iframe anymore. I'm done with the iframe. I don't need that big comment. You guys don't have to delete anything. I'm just deleting it so that I've got room. If you want to keep all this stuff, go ahead, keep it. Like, just do this stuff above it. It won't interfere with each other. I do want to use the table at some point in a bit. I want to show you guys tables. So I'm going to leave the table in there. But yeah, y'all don't have to do this. Y'all can just do this stuff above what you're doing. But I'm doing this because it's a little much. All right, so yeah, I'm going to start from scratch on this. Yeah, I'm going to start this from scratch. All right. So if you guys want to go make a separate HTML file and do this here, in fact, yeah, that's actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to undo all those changes I just made. Whoops. I'm going to undo all those changes I just made to get rid of things and go back to the point where I replaced my CSS with this other file. All right, I'm going to go back to that. And I'm going to take my web page and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it. And now I've got, a copy of that web page. The next web page, .html. And I'm going to open that up in the browser, and we're going to see it right here. I'm going to close this so that I don't accidentally look at it. Yeah, and now I've got a separate web page, but it's still referencing that previous web page's CSS file. So now what I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm going to make this back into an H1 because I want it to be an H1. I'm going to delete a bunch of stuff. I'm going to delete everything in the body, actually. I'm just going to leave my heading. I'm going to delete everything else in the body. And we can go back and reference. Oh, I should make sure that I'm actually editing the other one. So let me. Make sure I didn't do anything particular.
You were wondering how to make that second piece appear?
What second piece?
The like second screen to the
yeah.
right.
Yeah, tell me, how did you do
You
that?
do view and you do move or clone current document and move to other view.
Okay, interesting.
That's one way to do it, at least. Even if your settings aren't set up to make it conducive, it'll force it to do that. So
I don't know if people on YouTube can hear this, but he said up here there's view and then move/clone current document, and you can click move to
other view.
Yeah, I clicked move to new instance. That was funny. This thing functions kind of like a web browser. It's kind of nice. I was actually looking for that before we started because I was like, oh, I've got all my other stuff from my other projects on here. Anyway, so like here I've got AI Dungeon stuff over it. Like, look, this is like 1,000 entries of Pokemon for AI Dungeon over here. Jeez. Anyways. But yeah, okay, so what you do is, oh, you can also right-click the document itself and say move to other view. So yeah, if you're using Notepad++ and you want to have two views, you can take it and go, okay, move to other view by going move/clone current document, move to other view, or you can right-click it, move document, move to other view, and that's how you can do that. All right. Thank you, whoever was talking just now. You've solved the problem. Yeah, everyone in voice, feel free if you figure stuff like that out. You can go ahead and tell me. Okay, hang on a second, it's frozen. All right, so I'm in my document here. ID equals first. Whoops. Now I'm going to say ID equals left. Now I'm going to be even fun. ID equals right. This is the first div. Okay. ID equals this is the second div /div. All right. So when I look at these, whoa, what did I just do? That's okay. I can just reopen it. There we go. I don't know what I just did, but somehow I closed it, so I reopened it. All right, so I have two divs, right and left. You don't have to put them in that order or name them that. That's the name I'm using for them today. And I'm going to say that, when I open these in Firefox, or Chrome or Firefox, whichever one you want to use, this is the first div, this is the second div, right? Let me zoom way in for you guys. Right. So this is the first div, this is the second div. Second div, apparently. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say hashtag left and hashtag right. Watch, I'm going to mess this up somehow. Alright, so I've got hashtag left and hashtag right. Alright, now I want, let's go back to that concept we were talking about before. We know that divs are a block element, which all that means in a CSS perspective is that they already have display block written on them. That's what that means from a CSS perspective. You can make any element a block element in CSS. So let's go to display block, even though it already has that. Position absolute. And let's do, for the left side one, let's do left 0. Okay, absolute position. And let's go ahead and copy that position absolute. And instead of left, I'm going to put right, right? So I've got left has left equals 0, or left is set to 0. For right, right is set to 0. And now I've got these two divs on two different sides of the page. You know, this one's on the second div ended up on the left, and the first div ended up on the right. So the div with the ID of left ended up on the left, and the div with the ID of right ended up on the right. And the way that the computer is looking at this is, well, this div has a right element. The property right is, the property left on this element is 0. So there should be 0, you know, pixels of space. There should be 0 space on the left side of the element. By the way, when it's 0, you don't have to put a like pixels or any sort of what's the word? You don't have to put a scale or a what is the word? Units. You don't need units because 0 is always 0. So the next thing we can do is, now let's say I want it to be, I want these two to be, you know, I'm going to give them a border. Give them a nice border. Let's see, where's the borders that we're using? Here we go. Let's give them all nice borders. 4px solid purple, that's what I'm using. And width. I'm going to show you something that a lot of the people here, even the people who are web programming, I might be the only person here who knows this one. In fact, if you even go to like the devs at Latitude, they might not know this, because I know that there's a couple people from Latitude talking here. But if you go to like actual web developers, a lot of them won't know about this specific unit that you can use in CSS. I am going to put 45 VW. 45 VW. I am going to set both of these to have a width of 45 VW. This is your best friend. This is the best unit ever for your web page layout. 45 VW stands for view width. It basically takes the exact width of your view and then basically takes a percentage of that. So 45 VW is going to always, always, always make your elements 45% of the view width. There's also view height. So let's say I want to make it also be, I can go height. This is great. Like nobody knows about this unit. It is like, it's been in the standard for years and nobody knows about it. I just am always floored at how great this is. So we've got our first div and our second div, and they are both the same size, but on two different sides of the page. And watch me do some even more cool shit. Because remember, we've got this this main title up here, right? All right, so I want this main title up here to be position fixed. That's going to be a different thing because remember down here we're using absolutes. So the position fixed is different from absolutes. So we're going to do position fixed, top 0, left 0. And because this might be a case that is going to mess with us, margin 0, padding 0. All right, so I added margin 0, padding 0. I'm not going to go too in-depth into these, but margin creates space around the elements. So if you look here and I highlighted, if you see this orange space around it when I'm highlighting it, that is the margin. of that element, right? And that is a property of the margin being that size is a property of the H1 element itself. So by putting margin 0, I've just canceled that out. Then you've also got the padding is the other thing I did. I'm going to go ahead and add padding to this just so you can kind of see. I'm going to go take this first div. I'm going to add padding to it just so you can see what padding does. But I don't really want to go too deep into padding. Padding, let's make it 10 px. All right. So now you see what it just did. It just made like this white space around the edge of it. Oh, if I highlight it, you can see it because it's highlighted in green. So that's what padding does. I'm not going to go too deeply into that. It's important to know that, but y'all can learn that on your own because I'm showing you how to look things up and learn this stuff on your own. Anyways, all right, so now I've got my first div and my second div. All right, so let's say, all right, let me show you something that I like about this right here, that I like to do with this stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I can have a span element. All right, so remember what I said about span elements, that they, I'll do another div. This was a div. All right, so I'm going to do a div. I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to make a thing there. You should, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go ahead and say position absolute left 0 and give it another border. Right, and see, I just copied that straight out of the CSS because all that's in the style attribute is CSS. I'm going to make the border smaller because it doesn't need to be so big. It's so big. All right, 2px solid purple. And I'm going to title it left. And then I'm going to make a similar div. I'm going to stick another div right here. And I'm going to call it, I'm going to make right 0. Alright. And I'm going to name it. Oops. Alright, so I got my first div and my second div. And, oops, you know what I did wrong? They, Alright, you know what I did wrong here is I need to make... Alright, so I'm going to show you, because I've shown you top already. Oh, I didn't even show you what top did. Right, so I set this to have... Why is that not doing... Oh, because I didn't save it. Okay, I got ahead of myself again, because I keep doing that. So there's my main title, right? And H1 over here is set to this, and it's got all these attributes. And in fact, I'm going to even add another attribute, just so we're back on it. Background color, let's make it black, so that we can really see what's going on here. Background color is black, the font color is green. All right, so this is remember applied to that H1 tag. That has the title of the web page in it, right? Or that has this thing over here that's like my great web page. I'm going to hit refresh. Whoa, what just happened? Why is it doing that? Let me figure out why it's doing that. I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know if y'all are seeing this, but it's like briefly applying the correct CSS and then undoing it, and I'm not sure why it's doing that.
Is the H1 overriding the CSS?
Maybe? It shouldn't be, because the CSS always goes first, so I don't think it's that. That's really weird. Do I have it double defined? I've never seen this one before. This is actually a new one to me.
Is that a Google Chrome issue?
I don't know. This is like a bug. I don't know what this is.
Maybe if you try Internet Explorer, it'll work or something. I don't know.
I could. Let me try it in Edge. I'm going to open Edge. I never use Edge, so it doesn't have many tabs open. Let's see what happens when I open it. Yeah, so I open it Edge, and it does Edge's crazy display, but you can see that it's doing it right. So I don't know what's going on there.
That's weird. That's weird.
It's like it's cached something. Okay, so I've got some sort of weird caching error. I've got some sort of weird caching error going on. I don't know why this is not doing it.
Chrome settings and clear your cache out. It'll fix it, but I don't know.
I don't want to do that because then I'm gonna that means clearing my cache, and I don't want to clear my cache.
Well, I mean, you could just manually find the file, but that could take you a few hours.
Yeah, that could take a while, so I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna ignore that it didn't do what I wanted it to for 5 seconds because I had gotten sidetracked on this thing, and then I was talking about this. So I'm gonna talk about this for a second. So that left and right thing. All right, so I tried to make these little labels above them, and I noticed that they're down here because their top is set to 0. This is the tops of these little tabs here is set to 0, right? So I can't. There are 2 ways that I can reposition this property. Either I can make the top a negative number, right? I can make the top a negative number. And then it would, I would have to know the exact spacing of it. Or I could use the bottom attribute and make bottom equals 0, right? Set bottom to 0. And now when I click this, right, because it's relative to that, never mind. I was about to say, oh, you set bottom to 0, but okay, now well, let's go with this. This is a button on the bottom of the page apparently now. And notice I just called it a button. Alright, so I've set the bottom to 0 on both of these. So now they're not overlapping this. Alright, so there is this thing that I used to like to do where I would have these little I would use these divs where I would have like a little title above them, and then I would apply this specific thing that I'm going to show you guys. Alright, so I'm going to take these 2 little divs, and I'm going to give them an attribute called onClick, right? And I'm going to have that, I'm going to give that onClick attribute, I'm going to put this thing in here, this function definition type thing in it. Okay? So I have given the div that, I've given one of these, I'm giving these divs down here, right? The attribute onClick. And inside of that attribute, I am typing toggle div, and then I'm putting inside of single quotes, inside of parentheses. Right. Okay? And specifically, I am giving it this ID right here. Whatever this is, I'm putting in here. Right? And I'm going to do the same thing down here for this other thing. And now it's going to become clear why I'm doing this. I'm going to give it toggle div left for this left div. So up here in the head, you'll notice that I have a script tag. So it's like you open it and you close it, right? And you give it type equals JavaScript. This is the final part of this class here, is that we're going to talk about JavaScript real quick. So I'm going to give this, and I'm going to do what's called, I'm going to make a function, right? This is the very basic JavaScript. You make a function, you title it, right? I titled it toggle div, and I want to be able to pass it the name of a div, or an ID, so I type in ID, and then I open brackets, curly brackets, and then I close them. All right, so now what's going to happen? Because this says on click, and it references toggle div, and that's toggle div, it's going to call this function. It's going to take this function. This is actually where it starts to become less just laying things out, and this is where we get kind of programming. So I've passed it right? I've passed it the word right. And the reason I titled this could have been titled anything, but I decided to title it ID. You don't have to title it ID. It can be titled anything. But what that is going to be is a variable in JavaScript called ID. And I specifically wrote right here because the ID of this is right. And I wrote left here because the ID of this is left. So now you're going to do, and this is going to be kind of crazy to do. In fact, I'm even going to tell you, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to say, all right, this is going to be kind of crazy to write, but please try and follow. Document dot, right? I'm going to go even find it in my other thing because I've written this. This is one that I've written millions of times. Document dot get capital E element capital B by ID. All right, so that's all one word, no spaces, but it's camel case, so you've got that. Dot hidden. So what this is it's something called the document object model that we are referencing. And you don't have to know this just yet. But the document object model is this concept in JavaScript that everything in your HTML document, it's like a collection of variables that have other variables inside of them. So each variable, like your body, is an object. And this whole thing is an object. And this is an object inside of that. And you can go down these levels until you get down to a div object. And then you've got the text inside of it is the last object in the tree. And so it's this way of looking at the file as not as a series of opened and closed tags, which is what it was originally thrown down as, but as a set of sort of like as if these are all their own thing. Every element, open, closed tag, everything inside of it, that's its own thing. And, things, when you put other elements inside of it, they're the children. They call this parent and child. So the parent of everything here is the document. And inside the document, you have a child called HTML. And inside HTML, you have a child called body. And you have a child called, this isn't actually how it's laid out, but it's just giving you an example. An element called a div, right? You have this document.child.body.document.html.body.div. You might also look at these as like slashes, as like subdirectories. But the basic idea is there's this document object model. Model as in it is a way of looking at HTML. So what we are doing here is we are saying, hey, the document, this whole HTML thing, you can't see me gesturing with my hands, this whole HTML thing here is a document. And we're referencing that document. And we can get an element within the document by its ID. So these are all elements, right? The divs and the H1s and the bodies, these are all elements within our document. And they have IDs now. So I can say ID equals right down here, and I can say get element by ID right. And now this piece of code right here, this document.get element by ID right. I don't know if you guys are following this. That's why I'm just explaining so many times. You guys might have already gotten this. basically it's automatically referring to this piece of text down here, this div element down here that has the ID of right. This is the basis of all JavaScript programming. Everything in JavaScript is based around this, okay? So I've got this dot hidden thing. So now I'm referencing that div element, and that div element has something inside of it, you know, a variable inside of it called whether or not it's hidden. So it's called hidden, and it says whether or not it's hidden. So what we can do here is I'm going to hit var is hidden equals this, right? No. You know what I'm going to do actually? Var div. I'm going to do this. Var div, all right, equals document get element by ID right. I'm not going to use hidden just yet. ID. This is the programming process. You start doing things and you're like, no, it's a better way to do it. I'll do this. All right. So now what I've done is that when this function calls this div, when you call this function and the ID comes up, it's going to go into the document, find the ID element with that ID, and then set it to this variable. So this variable right here, var div, that I just made. Var is to say that it's a variable. Div is the name of the variable. All programming languages look like this. What I've just done is I've said, go get me the object for that document. Go get me your program object in JavaScript for that particular div that we're referencing. So one of these divs down here. And save the reference pointing to that in this div so I can talk in this variable so I can talk about that div right now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be very simple for you guys right now. I'm going to say div.hidden, because the hidden tag, every HTML tag has a hidden element to it. It's very simple to set. Equals true, right? I'm going to set that to true, right? So div.hidden equals true. I've set it to true. So now I'm going to refresh my page. Now let's review what I did. Left has an on-click toggle div right. Okay. This div is named left. This div has an ID of left right here. Right here. This div right here has an ID of left. Okay. I have a script, toggle div ID, var div equals document get element ID. I have a script in here, a JavaScript function that changes the element of whatever div you just gave it of hidden to true. So watch, it's not going to do the thing that I programmed it to do. Watch, it's not going to. And now let me have a blank screen of death moment where I remember what it was that I just did wrong, because I've seen this before. Why is it not clicking? Oh, because I'm stupid. Remember how I said that A tag was really important? Go take what I said to put in the div tag and put it in an A tag, and surround that div, those divs with A tags. That's what I did wrong. All right, A. Whoops. A.
Is the A tag just like a keep active tag or something?
No, the A tag is it makes it clickable. Yeah, the A tag, what it is A tag is a link tag, but it also just makes it clickable. And that's what we need right now. We need these divs to be clickable. So what we're going to do is we're going to have A on-click toggle div right. All right. So I like how I did that whole like gravity of the moment explain, and then nothing happened, but that's what I did wrong. I've hit this so many times. Geez, it's still not working. All right, so let me figure out what I did wrong.
Could it be that same Google Chrome error as before with the caching?
No, you know what it is? It's that I don't remember how I'm doing this in the things that I'm doing this. Like, if I show you this, I've got a bunch of really crazy stuff written in HTML recently, but it's like it's stacked so many times that like there's so many different layers of it stacked that this stuff is like stuff I barely touch right now. All right, so here's what I did. This is an old thing. You don't do this anymore, but just so that we can see it. And then I did href equals the pound sign, right? And then I did onClick, toggle div right, and toggle div left. And then I surrounded that left button and right button with the A tag. There's a better way to do this. I just don't remember how to do it. Either that or there isn't a better way to do this, and this is how you're supposed to do it. This might be how you're supposed to do it. But anyway, I had href equals the pound sign. And what that'll do is, remember what I said, the pound sign references anchors within the page. The pound sign doesn't reload the page. It just adds a pound sign to the URL and then does something inside the page. So what you do is you do href equals pound sign, and it's sort of a dummy, right? So now if I refresh my page, okay, now it's letting me click these things. It's made them clickable. When I go over them, it does this. Okay, so now to review, what we just did was we gave it an A tag, and we surrounded the div with an A tag, and we had the A tag has an onClick element that goes to a function, and the function references this. So if I click left, nothing happens, because that's what goes on in this tutorial today. What the hell?
Is your computer just broken?
Is my computer just broken? I don't know. You know what it probably is? I probably like didn't close a tab properly or something. I don't know. What did I do wrong?
Can you run a bug checker in Notepad++, or is
not
that
gonna run
not
a
a thing in
bug
this
checker.
program?
I'm just gonna, this is the process here. Is that sometimes you just really stupid one day and you just do stupid things, and then you sit there like, why does this not work? It's weird. It's like my style sheet itself is not working properly. Actually, you know what that is? It's that the zoom stopped. Oh, I don't know why that did that. All right, so we've got this. So now this is where we're getting to debugging, and I hate that I'm having to do this in the middle of like I said, I was planning on like, oh, I'll have this already, and then a hurricane hit. I was gonna run through this with someone beforehand, so I made sure it didn't happen like this, but this is happening. All right. But this is learning, because this is what you guys got to learn how to do, is how to fix these things.
You just want to try it in Edge and see if it works there real quick, or?
Try it in Edge. Yeah, you know what? Chrome has been weird tonight, so let's go open it in Microsoft Edge.
It worked before.
Yeah, here it is in Microsoft Edge, where it's actually taking my what I do and doing it right. Inspect element. See, I don't know why Edge is doing things differently. Oh, wow. See, Edge has a nice one. It's got all this other stuff going on in it. All right. So, left. We click left. OnClick. Toggle div right. So note to self, next time we do one of these classes, I gotta make sure that I run through this like this. All right, let's see. Toggle div ID left and right. This is like the last thing I wanted to show you guys too. That's the crazy thing about it. Because y'all now have a pretty decent understanding of HTML now, so I just wanted to show you, hey, you can use JavaScript to do cool things. But let me go back to where I've got an actual implementation of this. Document get element by ID hidden equals true. Yeah, that's the correct implementation of it. Why does it work like why is it not doing what I think it should do? I don't know what's going on here. It's really annoying. I was gonna show you guys like how to do like a really neat little button in JavaScript, and now it's like I don't know why it doesn't at all work. If I look at the JavaScript up here, it's there. Here's a way you can debug things. Let me show you how to debug things without having to use a debugger. Okay, so I'm going to type in console.log, right? I'm going to show you a quirk of JavaScript while I'm doing it. So console.log. Console is, it's referring to something that you're going to see in a second. And .log is just, a function that puts something on that console. Console is a text output that you're going to see in a second. All right. Toggling div. And then I'm going to do plus, and then I'm going to put ID. So JavaScript and Java are different from other languages in that you can have text added together like it's numbers, and what it will do is, instead of doing what other languages would do, which is freak out that you've just done the wrong thing, JavaScript will, it will put those two strings together. They're called strings. These blocks of text are called strings. It's just a type of data type that we use to hold text. All right, so console over here. Ah! This is what I needed to be clicking this whole time. It was actually throwing an error. So this is where I'm stupid, because it was actually throwing an error this whole time, every time I clicked this. Okay, now I'm seeing what I did wrong. All right, so it's throwing an error. So this error message over here, I will throw it somewhere that you guys can see it. The error message it just threw is I'm gonna break it up so you guys can see it. All right, so what it's claiming is that toggle div is not defined. I don't know why it's claiming that just yet, but that's why it's not working, because so here's how you read these errors, is what this means, all this really means is uncaught reference error means it tried to look for something and it wasn't there. And what it's now telling me is that this function right here, for some reason, it can't see it. So that's what we got to figure out now. Why can't it see that function? What were you saying just now? I heard someone talking.
I can't remember. It's been a long time since I did coding, but do you have to define that as a variable before you put the function in?
What do you mean?
Like do a var and then toggle div and set it to false?
No.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
No, you don't need to define any variables here. The thing is, like, the issue that I'm having here, what's going weird
is your div supposed to be a triple equals, or?
I have a thought of what might be going wrong. I might be using the script tag in an incorrect way. So here's what I'm going to do. I think this is it. I think this is my problem. I'm going to go to the Mozilla Developer Doc. And I'm going to go down on the side here. You can just search, like, you can just find them by name. So there is the script tag. There is something called the script tag, right? All right, so there's the script element. And we scroll down a little bit. And we're going to find an example of how to do it. How do we use the script elements? All right, so you know what it might be? It might be that I have the wrong type. Watch, I'm going to do something stupid and it's just going to like immediately fix everything. Okay, so I got rid of type, because I noticed that in the documents they don't have that there, and it might be that I've typed the wrong thing in. You know, for completeness, I typed in what I thought was the right thing, but it might not be the right thing. Okay, so y'all see what I just did there? All right, I clearly didn't write this correctly in the thing because it does this. But, all right, so. All right, so we've got div ID right, div ID left, and we look for the div by the ID. All right, so I click right. And I don't know what is going wrong with it, but as you can see, I click left and the right div disappears. So we're making progress. That was what I intended to have happen. At least I intended for something to disappear. It wasn't that, but I intended for something to disappear. So I've got these mislabeled for one thing. All right, I'm just fixing some stuff that was done in here. All right, so these are semi-mislabeled. All right, so I just fixed that. That these are, for some reason, I've got these kind of turned around on themselves. So I'm gonna just do this. I'm gonna have my two divs and my two buttons, and they're in different places. And if you notice, I've got them in completely different places in the HTML than they are on the page. You really shouldn't do that, but you know, it doesn't really matter. That's what I'm trying to convey here. And here we are back in Microsoft Edge for some reason. All right, so I've got this loaded. For some reason, only the right div will disappear on me. So let's try and figure out why only the right div is disappearing. Because both divs should be disappearing. All right, let's see what's going on when we do this. So we take the inspector thing. Oh, that's really weird. So this is actually working. I don't know. I've never seen this one before. Yeah, it's all night. It's been doing things I've never seen it do before. I'm wondering if there is a problem in... You know, I wonder, you might be right. There might be something going wrong with Chrome tonight. Because it's acting really weird. No, except for that button also isn't working in... Maybe I'm not allowed to use the word left. I don't know. I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try renaming this to div2. Watch this. This ends up being this weird... Because this is weird like this sometimes. Oh, geez. Oh, that's right.
I think that might be another term.
What?
Somewhere else. The div2. That might... I don't know.
No, that was it. That was it. You're not allowed to name it left. You are not allowed to use the ID left. I don't know why. I've never tried to use it before. It didn't click to me until just now that might not be allowed. It's not allowed. You're not allowed to do it. I don't know what to say. Div1 and div2, you're allowed to use. Right and left, you shouldn't be using apparently. See, there's the thing. Like this is why I don't call myself a master programmer when it comes to this language, because I don't know that you're not allowed to call them right and left. I don't know that. I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't know. All right, so here's div1 and div2. And I've got the two togglers toggling the first and second div. And as you can see, I can come in here and make everything go crazy because I didn't save something. I don't even know what it's doing now. Watch, I'm going to go over to...
Your ID and your CSS, sir. Did you change your ID and your CSS? And save that?
I don't even know what's going on anymore, man. I don't even know. It's like it's just everything is going bizarre. Like right as I'm trying to demonstrate things, they don't work.
Because that's the law of the presenter?
Yeah, that's the law of the presentation, I guess, that every time you try to teach something, it's like usually my classes are a lot less chaotic than this, so I'm sorry about that if that's hard to follow for anyone. But I hope I am at least conveying a lot of knowledge about how this process ends up going. This is how the process goes. Like, this is like the worst it's ever, I guess this is good for you guys to see. This is like the worst it's ever been for me in terms of just like having weird bugs show up. I have no idea what bug I've run into here because I've got div 1 and div 2. Like, this seems like legal HTML. But I'm going to find something at some point, like I said, with the right or the left and all that. You just find things at some point that you just realize, oh, wait, that's why it's not working. It's because of some weird esoteric thing within all of it. So I'm going to go first div, second div. Apparently you don't want to name them. I'm going to name them first div and second div. No, I did not do that right. Okay. Wait, what? Wait. Okay. Oh, okay, never mind. I was like, wait, what just happened? Alright, so I've named them first div and second div just because I know that those won't have any collisions. And it still doesn't work. Okay, why is this not working? Let's see if we can. I'm going to hunt down this bug in front of you guys. So why is it not working? Alright, so we get the first div. And ID equals first div, so div ID first div. We've got our HTML. We've got style.css. Let me open up style.css and see what the browser thinks it looks like. Let's see. Revealing sources panel. So this is what the browser thinks it... Oh, that's interesting. So I don't know if you guys can make this out on my screen, but it still has the version of style.css that has left and right, which we determined that those don't work. Yes, I don't know why it's doing that. I've never seen it. It's caching it, yes. I don't know why it's caching it. I've never seen it do that before. If I go over in the thing and do that, usually, okay, so what this error is, what this bug that I'm running into here, right? This is called caching. This is what the browser does. Instead of trying to load, when you go to a web page that you've already been to, what it does is the first time you go to a web page and it's downloading all these files, it knows that you might go back to this web page in the near future. So it downloads the files and it saves them on your hard drive. And then the next time you go to that website, it loads that version off your hard drive. So the way it's supposed to work is that it's supposed to go check to make sure that that version on your hard drive is no older than the version, it's not outdated, it's the same date and version of that file as the one on the server. The bug that we are running into here is that it is not doing that. I have no idea why this is not going on right. This is a problem within Chrome itself. I've never seen this before. But there's your thing that will happen to you. You know, sometimes apparently you're just gonna, you know, work on these things and then you'll run into a bug that you've literally never seen before. And I don't really know what else to say about that because it's weird. However, I can still toggle div first div and toggle div second div. Okay, we're going to try this like a third time here. This is in Edge. Edge doesn't have as bad of a problem with this. Edge still has this weird problem though. Once again, I was just stating, like, I don't think anyone in this room who actually knows HTML knows why it's doing this. If you can see, oh, I can make that bigger, cool. If we look in this little side page, right? It's applying that. What hidden is supposed to do is that's what's hiding that other div. When an element has the hidden attribute applied, it hides, right? And you can't, like I can do it over here and you'll see hidden, right? And that's the way that you're supposed to show and hide these things. This is an absolutely bizarre error that I have never seen before, where it's applying the hidden tag correctly, but it's not hiding the div. And I've never seen that before. But the right side div is doing what it's supposed to right now. So I'm going to go ahead and just continue a little bit further and show you guys how to make an actual toggle, right? And this will be the last thing I go over, and then we'll go over to questions, and we'll pick up JavaScript later in a later class. But all right, so here's what I'm going to do. So I have this function that's working at least on one of them. I want to make it so that when div.hidden is true, it turns to false, and that when it's false, it turns to true, right? So I'm going to say I want to figure out right now whether or not that is happening. So I'm going to type if I'm going to type if div.hidden equals. This is the equivalency operator. It's when you need to check if something is the same as something else, you use this equals. That's the same in every programming language. If I did this, it would set div.hidden equals whatever I'm putting after it. So if div.hidden equals true, for those who say, oh, there's a much there, you can do this all in one line. I know, I'm just showing people this. If div.hidden equals true, then, or if div.equal is equivalent to true, or equates to true, then div.hidden needs to equal false, right? And then I close my brackets. So there's my if statement. And then I can say else, open brackets, close brackets. Okay, if this happens, then do this. Otherwise, or else, div.hidden equals true. Let's make it true. All right, so now I'm going to get rid of where I did that because I already have something that says div.hidden equals true. And I'm going to go back into my browser that's working because for some reason Chrome isn't working, or yeah, Chrome is not working. And I'm going to do that. And it's working on the second div over here, but you can only see that in the code because for some reason that's not displaying properly. Like I said, I've never seen that before.
What does it mean with the two squiggly parentheses and then the dollar sign thing 0?
Oh, this thing?
Yeah.
Oh, it means it's the active element if I want to mess around with it in the console.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, it has a meaning. It's just not relevant. Anyway, so we can see that I'm showing and hiding a div right here. This is how it should work. I don't know why this button is broken. It's just broken. Actually, it's this div. I do not know what esoteric property of HTML I have found here, but I've never seen that before. You'll never run into this. I've never seen it. I'm going to look it up later because it's just that it's so weird. Anyway, though, it's bothering me so much. I don't know why it's doing it. Anyways, so here's the right div, and I'm showing and hiding it, right? So what's going on here in the... oh, I didn't need to do that. What's going on here in the JavaScript is, like I said, you know, the onClick element of this is meaning that when I click it, it calls the function toggleID or toggleDiv, and it gives it a string for the ID of this element, right? So it gives it a string, and then it runs this function that checks okay, is it hidden? Yeah, then make it unhidden. Is it not hidden because that was not true? Then make it hidden. And that's what it's doing. So let's talk for a second about how the way that these are Booleans, right? These are what we call in programming, these are Booleans and Boolean operators. Means that everything here is equating to true and false. We can make this a little quicker. I mean, for one thing, I can do, so what we have to understand about the if statement here is that what if is doing is it's saying, so this is the easiest way to, this is the simplest form of an if statement. And I sometimes will even write this code as a placeholder when I know I'll need an if statement later. If true, then do this, right? And what if statement is actually doing is it's saying, if whatever inside my parentheses equates to true, if whatever inside my parentheses, if that is true, if the value that it gives me is a true, as opposed to a false, because true and false are values, they are Boolean values, they are the only two values in a Boolean, also known as a 1 or a 0. Yeah, there. For people that know about how programs are all binary and true equals 1, false equals 0, it's literally a single bit operator. Anyway, though, so if true, then do this. And then the else statement is, it's called if that was false. It's basically if that if statement up there, if this was false, then you go down to this else statement and you file that, right? So this true and false up here, these true, that's or. This means or. If true or false, right? Then this. This true and false is the same as this true and false. They have the same, like there is no difference between setting a Boolean, you know, div.hidden is a Boolean, right? It is a data type that only holds true or false, or 1 or 0. So it's the same as this, right? So now that we know that, we can simplify this. I don't have to check to see if it equals true or not. I can just say, okay, if div.hidden. And if we go back to the web page, it will function it won't function because Chrome is not functioning. If we go back to the web page in Edge where it's actually working, don't know why it's working in Edge. Oh, and it makes a liar of me, okay. Oh, crap. Here's something you gotta know. If you have garbage like this, just random garbage like this, it will not run your program. Don't leave random garbage in your program. All right, in JavaScript, if you want to comment things out in JavaScript or CSS, it also works over here in CSS. This is called a comment. If you want to comment things out, you put a slash and then an asterisk. And then to close the comment, you can do asterisk and then slash. And this works in both JavaScript and CSS, right? So it works in both versions of this. So if and else. Okay, so that's how you comment something out, and it does the green thing like it did when I did it with the HTML. And like I said, HTML, it looks like that. It's these bracket things. It looks like a tag. All right, so All right, so now that I've shown you that, let's go back to the browser that's working tonight. And we see that it still works, even though I made this change where I'm not checking is it true, it still works. Okay, so now let's think about, optimizing the code a little more, because this is called optimization, what we're doing here. All right, so we know that the way that this is operating is that div.hidden is a true or false statement. It's going to be true or false. And then we're kind of flipping it, right? So I'm going to comment this out real quick so that I can do something else. This is our old version. I always recommend keeping your old version there for a little bit in a comment when you're making a new version of something. So I don't need that if statement if you think about it, because I already have the true or false value. I've just got the opposite of it, right? And there's a way to fix that. Div.hidden equals. This is called the not operator. It is an exclamation point. And when you do div.hidden and when you put a Boolean value into div.hidden, it becomes the opposite, or into the not operator. When you put a Boolean value into the not operator, when you put it before a Boolean, it returns the opposite of that Boolean. So let me put it this way. When you are programming this, true, not true, equals false. Not false equals true. Not false equates to true, right? And remember, I said this operator returns true or false based on if the two things on both sides are the same thing. So these statements both return true. But anyways, just getting into weird stuff. Anyways, I'm going to put this up at the top of everything so y'all can see just how small I've made this function, right, so far. I've gotten it down from this whole thing right here, right? It had this whole thing down here where it was div.hidden equals true, and you can get it down to this. Now, let me show you it even more. Like, I can do even more crap with this if I want, because I can do, and I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to recommend this. If I wanted to, because I'm setting this to this whole statement right here, I could do, remember, programming languages don't care what lines you put things on, as long as you've got this at the end. All right, so this is one line of code, even though it's broken between two lines. All right. I didn't even need a variable here. If for some reason I decided I don't want to have a variable here, I don't want to create a variable in this. Maybe I'm working under some environment, in some esoteric environment, where creating this variable right here actually takes more time than I want to take. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. Maybe for some reason I've decided that I don't want to make a variable. I want to just run the function. For some reason that's faster for me. I can just do this. I can just run the function twice, and it's the same thing as this. But we're not going to do that. This is the quickest and most efficient method to write this statement. Oh, I've split it between two lines. So I'm not, what I just did right here, in JavaScript and C and Python and Java and a few other languages, most languages, this double slash is another way to comments out the single line that it's on. So it's a way to comment out a single line. It's the recommended way to label things is to, do this, like go, oh, this function toggles the viz of the element, right? That's how you're supposed to label things. The reason I was talking about this earlier, this doesn't work in CSS. This does. and HTML has no equivalent. HTML and CSS have no equivalent to this, but so in CSS you have to use the asterisk and the slash, but you can use 2 slashes to comment out a single line in your JavaScript. That's very useful. If you ever see that in JavaScript, you'll see that if you start programming in JavaScript, and you'll see that. All right, so I've got my hyper. I'm gonna get rid of this console logging too. I feel like I can take out that training wheels. All right, so I've got a function down to 2 lines. There are only 2 lines in this function, right? And that is the 2-line function version of this this whole thing. And if I go over to here and I open it, once again, we are toggling the div, and it's all fine. So I'm going to go ahead and stop trying to teach this for now, because we've run pretty well over time. We've run over an hour over time, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and open the table. Is there any questions that anyone has? Like, is there anything we want to talk about? I'm going to go look at the live stream. You gave a goat to the YouTube gods. I'm checking over on the live stream right now if anyone can't see that. Width equals 45 VW, height equals, yeah. Everyone knows about VW and VH, someone says. Oh, why inline script? Oh, you're right. I should probably show this. So by the way, remember how I did this thing with our style sheet? I'm going to go ahead. Let me show you this. So if you make a new document in your folder, call it script. Oh, no. Call it script.js or something. Call it whatever. I don't really care what you call them. And you copy. I'm going to go ahead and cut. Not delete, but cut. And paste. Someone asked why this is inline. And this is the answer. The answer is because I didn't feel like doing this. All right, so I cut and paste this. All right, so now I've got script over here. Right? Now I've got my nice little script tag over here. Right? And just so I don't do it wrong again, I'm going to look it up, because I know you can do it. All right. Script source. So we go back to the Mozilla developer docs, right? Remember that, you don't, there are very few programmers who know how to do this stuff from the very base, from like off their memory. So don't feel bad about looking at the Java docs. So I named my file over here script.js, right? Yeah, it's script.js. So I'm going to go ahead and refer to script.js as the SRC, the source of this script, right? Watch, I've done it wrong, but, oh, that's right, that's not working. Oh, geez. Oh, geez.
Don't you have to open and close your script thing?
Right. It really doesn't like when you do that. Yeah. Okay, so here's what happened. Sometimes this doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't like this. Sometimes you have to write the closing version of the tag. All right? I thought that might happen, and I'm like, well, if it happens, this is an excuse to demonstrate this. What happened over here, if you look at the sidebar, is because I didn't close that tag, and it didn't recognize that the tag was closed, it put everything after that inside of the script tag, because it didn't recognize that it was inside the script tag. So what Edge automatically did was it put everything inside of that script tag, and then at the end it said, oh, well, what tags are open in what order? Oh, well, the script tag is open. Let's close the script tag, and the head tag is open, and the body tag has never been made, so make body and HTML, blah, blah, blah. That's what it did there. So if I just refresh it, it's fine. But the thing was, I had to open and close the script tag. I could not put nothing in there. I don't know why it's like that. It seems to me like it shouldn't be like that. a lot of them will let you just do what I did there, but this one apparently won't. Just weird quirks. And you can tell when it said, like I said, you can tell by when you look in the sidebar, it'll have everything inside of the script tag suddenly, like it doesn't really exist. But as you can see, that stuff I put inside of the script tag, that script.js, that is being called properly, and it's not inline, it's a separate file. And the really cool thing about that is I can make a bunch of HTML files, and all I have to do is copy, this. All I have to do is take the head and copy these things in the head. I will make a note here about, as one last thing here, I'm going to make a note about this. PHP, or any sort of server-side scripting language, what you will do if you ever use PHP, and maybe I'll teach a class on PHP or one of those languages sometime, but if I make page.php, right? All right, so I'm going to make a page.php, right? And what PHP basically looks like, I don't, it's been years since I've had a reason to use PHP, so I'm going to just do this. Include. So what you do is you include files from your server, and you do and that's usually going to be another PHP document. All right, so what PHP, this is the very basics of PHP, and what it's really useful for, this was the first thing he built into it, is that you can, you basically use PHP and you say, okay, include head.html, and head.html will be, you copy and paste this top section of it where it goes into the head, the HTML tag, the head tag, title link script, close the head tag, body, and then the header, your main page title. And then you've got that in head.html. And then your body, you'll have, each page will have, instead of having the head and the bottom of it, you just have, instead of having the top and bottom of the page, all you have to do in the page is have PHP build you, by using its various little scripts, you can have it build you the content of that page. So that's what you do there. And like I said, that's what it kind of does. And that's why it's useful, is because you can do that. But to show you guys PHP would require showing you how to set up an HTTP server on your computer, and so I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to let you guys know that's what PHP does. That's what these server-side languages do. They simplify this whole process, so you don't even have to write this every time. Because what you would really want to do, if you were to make this as web pages without that, you would copy and paste this whole section of it every time. And PHP just cuts that out, so you don't have to do that. All right, so someone else was talking over here. So that's the answer to your question, Fire Jim. The answer was I hadn't shown any of that stuff yet. Wow, that's a great... I'm just reading questions now. Or people can talk questions, but I'm going to read this. How did you manage to pack 4 months of a class into a single night? Because people who teach computer science, this was the thing that enraged me when they wouldn't hire me as a professor at FGCU. Because I taught privately, but they wouldn't hire me at a university, right? Even after years of teaching privately, because I didn't have a master's. And what enraged me was when I realized that the teachers at FGCU who were teaching the first like 4 classes they were basically drawing straws to see who had either it was drawing straws or seniority, to see who had the burden of teaching intro to programming and intro to comp sci and all these classes. And they would use like a PowerPoint that they had gotten from like 10, 20 years ago. They would go find a PowerPoint online and just teach off of these PowerPoint presentations. And you could tell the entire class, they didn't want to be there. And so the reason why I can pack more in is because my favorite thing to teach is intro. So I know all the ways to teach it, Yeah, I can pack 4 months of a class into a single night. This isn't 4 months of a class. This is more like a 1 month class, but I'll pack in the next month in the next class. We'll set it up somewhere on the server and I'll put up a link to it. But anyways, high school coding class, kind of a filler class, but it was fun. I made a full website. I had fun. I had lying around from where it was a full semester. I also made a clicker game in JavaScript. Page in a page is so useful. I can finally make my website. Yes. Okay, so that thing about iframes, that page within a page thing that I was showing you guys. Iframes are really only suggested to be used within your own website or in a website that specifically says, hey, open me in iframes. Before PHP got big, or, when you didn't have the ability to use PHP, what you could do, I'll just do it in front of you even. No, I'm not going to do it. Iframes are not the only version of frames. You can have an HTML document that all you do is lay out frames, and you lay out the sizing of the frames, and what you do is you have a frame on the left that is the sidebar, and you've got a menu of things, and the frame on the right is named content frame or something, and the sidebar, the HTML of the sidebar just has like a bunch of links. I mean, I'll even kind of show you what it looks like down here. So you'd have your sidebar, right? You'd have sidebar.html or whatever, right? And it will have like a href equals index.html. Index is what we always refer to our main page of our website, because historically that's the index of the website. And when you're accessing, back in the 80s when it was all command line, when you went to a website, you would access index.html, and it would usually just be a list of all the things that you go to on this website. Anyways, and a lot of servers will still auto-generate, like a lot of these HTTP servers will still auto-generate an index that is just a set of files. Anyway, index.html targets equals content frame, and right, you would make a sidebar that looks like this, and then you would have you would do this, and then of course you got to put br, right, and then you could have another one and it'd be like about.html, about me, and you put your resume there or something. This is what it would look like way back in the day. The first websites I built back in the 2000s, early 2000s, because we didn't have access to PHP always. The first websites I built, because JavaScript was, Ajax and PHP were not the way to do this, right? So we used this iframe thing, or we used not iframes, but there's another way to do frames. Just look up frames in HTML and you'll see this. We would program the pages like this. And it's so ratchet, but it really works. Like nowadays, you're not supposed to do this. Nowadays, you're supposed to do, and I won't get into this tonight, obviously, but there's a way to get JavaScript to load the page itself and then put it inside the page as if it's like that PHP thing that I was talking about. And that's called Ajax. And that's like advanced JavaScript that, like, maybe I'll teach a class on JavaScript and then the next class will be on Ajax, and Ajax will be the pinnacle level. But Ajax was this technology that was in the 2000s, became really big. And all it means is asynchronous JavaScript loading or something like that. Asynchronous JavaScript A extension or whatever. I don't remember what it means, but it basically all it did was it would load HTML with JavaScript from a page that you don't have loaded, and then stick it in your page using that thing that I was showing you with the document object model. And that was a big thing in Web 2.0. Like, that was a large chunk of Web 2.0 was like that. I'm not going to delete that. I'm going to comment it. Let's remember, how do we do HTML comments? We do the bracket, and we do the exclamation point, and we do the side, and then there we go. All right, and now you guys know how to do this. So, yeah, I'll try and teach an Ajax and JavaScript class at some point. Grecius said maybe the students are not good enough at learning, or the teacher isn't good enough at teaching, or padding out for mad cash. Yeah, that's generally all three reasons why. The other thing is that in a formal JavaScript course, in a formal course on these things, there's all this stuff that they're supposed to show you that I'm glossing over. They have to make sure that you know all this stuff. And the big problem is having to teach it to a test. And yeah, if I tried to give you a sit-down test right now on HTML, you would fail, because you don't know what any of these tags are. I've shown you how to find them, and I've shown you how to, how to put them together. I've shown you the syntax. I've shown you how things work. I haven't had you memorize anything, because that's what they do in those courses. They have you memorize things, and then you have to do them from memory. And the better way to learn is to build things, and then, never have a test. You just build things and then learn over time from building things. Okay, this is the way to do it. So there are many reasons why the way they do it in the university and school systems, why in the high school and university system your programming classes are not going to give you a good, why it's going to take longer to give you less information. But yeah. So if there aren't any more questions, does anyone want to talk? Does anyone want to say anything? I'm about ready to call this at the end. Do you guys want to see me? I'm gonna fuck around. Do you guys want to see me deconstruct someone else's web page real quick? Like, does anyone want to see me do that? I see someone
Yes.
unmuted. Do you want to see me do that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to show you how to. Hi, Augie the cat. I'm going to show you something. Here's a website I worked on. So here's English Wikipedia. Let me show you how wikis actually lay out their internal stuff. It's very fascinating. How about random article? Jerry Williams, the ice hockey player. I've never heard of this person. Okay, so I'm going to open up Developer Tools. And I'm going to go, I want to inspect elements. Here's the inspect element button. Alright, so let me say, I want to know, what is this thing over here? There's this whole side panel over here. How did they do that? Okay, so I look at the side panel here. Okay, this is the side panel. In fact, you know what? I only want to talk about the side panel. I'm going to make everything else disappear. Actually, can I make it only show me that element? Is there a way to show only one element in the thing? No, I guess there isn't. No, I was thinking like, oh, is there a way to hide all the other elements because there's way too much to hide? But no, I can just make it pop open. Okay, so here's what it does. H1, navigation menu. Well, that's interesting. They already, okay, so the MediaWiki navigation, this sidebar here, is a div, right? So we've got a div called MediaWiki navigation. Wait, No, we don't have a div called MediaWiki navigation. Okay, what the fuck am I looking at? Let me find this real quick. Okay, here's the sidebar. Okay, MediaWiki panel. That's what it's called. This is called MediaWiki panel. And, alright, so it's a div called MediaWiki panel. Oh my gosh, there's a giant div open. Alright, so, we notice it's inside of a div that we can't see called MediaWiki navigation, or MW navigation. You always want to give them like nice short little names. But, navigation menu. It has an H2 tag called navigation menu that we cannot see. The reason why it has this H2 that we cannot see is what they've done is, remember what I said earlier about the H1, H2, H3, all those H tags, is that they create an anchor within the page that you can automatically scroll to. If you are blind, or you are operating, if you are blind and using a screen reader, or you are operating this within a console, right? Instead of a graphical interface, you're using the command line, right? Because there are command line web browsers. It will let you tab through these headings, and the screen reader will tell you, hey, this right here, it is called navigation menu. So that's the point of that. It's so that people on consoles and screen readers can still look at the page. So then we've got this div over here called MediaWiki panel. Hey, look at that, it's a div. Remember what I said about divs, that they're block elements and that you can do all these crazy things. So they've given it a position absolute, they've given it a top of 0, and they've given it a left of 0, and they've given it a width of 10 EM. EM is a unit that refers to sort of the sizing on the page. The different units are different ways to size things on the page, basically. There's a bunch of them. I prefer pixel, percent, and VW and VH. Anyway, though, so we got this panel, and if we notice top and left, position is absolute, and top and left are both 0. That means that the top and left of the element are going to be right here. There is nothing on top of it. There is 0 on the left of it. All right? So now we're going to go down in div ID logo, and then it's got this thing that's it's given the ID logo, and it's given the background somewhere in there. I remember how this works. I'm not going to find it in there to show you, but I remember that the way that this works is that IDP logo, somewhere in the code, there is a part of the code that says that IDP logo references the Wikipedia banner here. This is its own image, but it's done in such a way that it doesn't do it right. We can also see that this right here, oh no, it's class MediaWiki logo. That's what it was. It's class MediaWiki wiki logo. Has a background image somewhere defined in some document in the PHP, defines it as this URL to this PNG image right here, right? So now we go down another step, and we notice also that the A itself, look at this A element itself has a link href in it so that we can click it, and they have set it to be display block. They've set it to have a width of 10 and a height of 160 pixels. They've given it, and I can mess with this. I can make it bigger or smaller. I didn't make it all weird. Like, wow, I made the height of this, and it starts scrolling down on us. I've done this. All right, so they've made the height of this, 160 pixels. They made the width the same width that they've given the rest of the sidebar. All right, so now we're looking at the nav. So we've got an element called nav. That is not a common element. That's for sidebars, and I'm actually even trying to remember if nav is something that is nav. Let me look this up on MDN nav tag. I don't remember if it's a real tag or when they made it. All right, there is a way to make up your own tags. I do not recommend it, but there is a way to do it. So yeah, you've got the navigation section element. When did this first get introduced? Oh yeah. See, that's why. So the navigation element was not in HTML 1 or 2. I think it's 3, 4, or 5 actually that nav was introduced as an element. Probably 4. I'm going to say that it was probably introduced in 4 because you can see that it wasn't introduced till Firefox version 4. And that was like 2004 that came out. So it was not a thing in the 90s. That's why it confused me for a second. Like, is that a real one or not? But it used to be not recommended to use elements like nav because they were too new. By the way, about that, if you notice, if you scroll down to what I did here, you should always check this when you're using a feature of HTML or CSS or JavaScript. JavaScript, not so much. JavaScript is pretty standard nowadays, but you see browser compatibility down here, right? And it's got these versions of these browsers, and it's like, I don't even see Internet Explorer listed here. I'm sure it exists there, but, you know, basically, it's telling you this element is common, this element is usable. You can use this element and it'll be fine because it was introduced in an old enough version of all these things. Chrome 5 came out in the 2000s, Firefox 4 came out in the 2000s, it's all fine. What you will sometimes see is, like with very esoteric CSS like properties, you will sometimes see these be orange or red. If it is red in a browser that you want to support, like Chrome, Firefox, Edge, or Opera, or Safari, if it's red in one of those, what that means is that that browser doesn't know what that element is. It doesn't know what that thing is. If you do it in that browser, it won't know what to do. Orange is like that halfway point where it kind of implemented it, but the implementation is wrong or incomplete. So it'll do something, but we're not going to tell you what it does because we don't know what it does. It'll do something between not doing anything at all and doing the correct thing. So it'll do something that's partially incorrect. And this is very important when you're trying to code a web page and you're using things that you don't think, and you think, that's not a very common thing to put in a web page. Is that a thing that all browsers support? The answer might be no. So anyways, going back to this. So we've got this nav element, and nav, as we just saw, nav, it is an element that represents a section of the page whose sole purpose is to provide navigation links either in the current document or to other documents. So menus, tab, tables of contents, indexes, whatever. All right. So we're looking at this sidebar, and there's something else really interesting about the way that MediaWiki, the software that Wikipedia runs on, lays out its sidebars. So if you notice, okay, I've got div class vector menu content within that nav thing. I've also got this h3 saying it's a navigation label, and that's once again hidden because, or it's not hidden, it's displayed in such a way that you can't see it because Wikipedia, MediaWiki doesn't want you to see that. That's not for you. That's for, if you need to, that's for the screen reader. That's for, accessibility purposes. So now we've got a div within the nav called vector menu content, and that's just made to like space these out nicely. And then we've got a UL element. And we didn't talk about the UL element. That is the unnumbered list, also known as bullet points, right? Except we notice over here that there are no bullet points. Okay, so if we go down here, we see this list style thing. We see all this stuff here, and we don't see, I'm trying to remember if it's UL or LI. But basically, what they've done here is they've what's the word? They've overridden the part of the unnumbered list that gives it bullet points. It's either the unnumbered list or the list item. They basically canceled out the part by writing some CSS that overrode it so that it doesn't show the bullet points. Instead, what they are using it to do is to nicely lay out their pages, right? And this has become a pretty common use for unnumbered list elements. I'm not entirely sure why. I don't do this personally, unless I'm working on MediaWiki. And the reason why is because MediaWiki, gonna open up a wiki. I'm gonna open up a wiki and I'm gonna show you something. A wiki that I've got admin access to. So this is the AI Dungeon wiki that I've got admin access to. I could open the Optimalverse wiki too, but how about, let's see if I can remember how to get to the sidebar. Special pages. Oh, someone's messing around on here. Oh, hey, I gotta go. Like, apparently I gotta go while I was hurricaning. I gotta go do something else. Alright, let's see. Oh, if only I could remember. Oh, duh, just look it up. So MediaWiki is written in PHP, right? Remember what I said about PHP is that PHP can throw pieces of HTML down, right? So, all right, so PHP allows you, MediaWiki is just a giant HTML or PHP program, right? MediaWiki allows you, PHP allows you to insert HTML from other pages in. So if we look at the sidebar for the AI Dungeon wiki, MediaWiki sidebar, all it is, and I'm going to go edit it even to show you guys what it looks like when I edit it. All it is me in a wiki markup making a bullet-pointed list of all these things. And what MediaWiki is doing is it's looking at that bullet-pointed list and recreating it over here. Because if we look at the AI Dungeon wiki, we will also see... Oh, this brings back memories from when I was working on this. Because I had to do this to make the CSS work. When we do this over here, we can see the list items again. LI, main page description. Okay, it doesn't do that exactly, but it's still making list items. And I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember the back end of MediaWiki too well because it's tons of, it's like thousands of lines of PHP, but it's basically recreating this bullet pointed list over here. And it's got some, quick, elements that it does. But yeah, there's MediaWiki. Anyway, see, that's what I'm talking about. Like learning how to look things up is like the #1 skill you need to learn as a programmer. So if you can take away one thing, it's that even the person that has like 10 years of it that remembers when Wikipedia didn't exist, even the person who has been programming since before Wikipedia, who remembers the early days of Wikipedia and doing like weird scripting attacks on Wikipedia to try and we were trying to what's the word? We were trying to find vulnerabilities in Wikipedia so that we could patch them, right? And like even the person who was doing that back then still has to look up this stupid stuff like oh, how do I use this basic HTML tag? Because you'll forget it. It's not really, there's no point in memorizing it when you can easily look it up and you'll forget it. So don't worry about, looking everything up. I don't know why these professors think that you need to memorize everything. You don't. You just look it up. The important thing is knowing that it's there and knowing how to find it. And then that's half of programming, is knowing what's there and how you can find it. The other half is just knowing these syntax things and how the logic of, programming things. So, if I can impart one thing upon you about programming today, it's just that you need to learn how to look things up. That's your main skill is going to be. Anyway, so we've got that. If we go over here, I'm just going to show you how Wikipedia lays out all this other stuff. I'm tired of talking so much about it because I've gone long on this. So what we can see up here is that we've got an H1 for this tag. It's got class of first head. It's got two classes separated by a space. Two classes separated by a space. First heading. That will mean that it's got the class first heading, and it also has the class MediaWiki first heading. And so in the CSS, it will take things from both first heading, from both dot first heading and .MediaWiki first heading, right? Because if we remember, CSS, your classes are dots, right? And it might even use some of this or some of this, you know? So there we've got that. So we've got a H1. It's got our nice big heading for the page. It's nicely stylized because they can. They even put it inside of a tiny span because they could. Let's see, then we've got this div called ID body content. ID is body content. Why is the ID body content instead of a class? Because you've only got one per page. IDs are unique. You should only have one of each ID per page. If you only have one of an element per page, you should have the ID be the way that you refer to it. Class means you have a bunch of them. And this goes over to JavaScript. Remember how in the JavaScript I referred to IDs and classes? Get element by ID. There's also a sort of, you know, get element by class name, right? Okay, this won't return a single element. This will actually return what's called an array, right? Where you've got multiple elements at once. I'm not going to get into that right now, but because classes you can have more than one, it'll return an array of them. If you have more than one element with the same ID in a document, I don't know what will happen because there's no specification on that behavior. The standards document just says, don't do it. I mean, it might say some behavior, but it's not something you're supposed to ever be doing. It might be that it does the first one, but anyway, so we look a little bit further. We've got this content subheading, blah, blah, blah. Jump to nav. All right, now we've got MediaWiki content text, this other big div. So many divs and divs. That's what I was talking about. You need to learn the div tag because that's the one that you're going to use a lot. It makes sense once you're in the thick of it. All right, div class equals MediaWiki parser output, as in all of this stuff that we've output, all of this stuff that the MediaWiki of the page, if we were to look at the MediaWiki of the page, let me even be able to look at that. I'm not going to bother looking at it. I'm just telling you. This is the PHP parser. This is that main part of it where it's dumping all this content, where it's really building the HTML. This other stuff is it's got other files that are just very simple, and all they do is they're made to just build, you know, build this stuff around it. It's probably even got, you know, okay, well, I know what the page title is. That's not going to be part of it, so that. But this is where it actually looks at the wiki markup and parses it and builds the page. So let's see. You've got, first thing on the page is a table. This is the table element, because the table element is used to build sequential data tables of data. This is one of the few times when it's appropriate to use it. It might even be, you know, that a lot of people would say do this with a div or spans. You could do this with a div or spans, but you could do this with a stack of block elements or something, but they're using a table here. And I think the reason they're using a table, if I guess, it's because this is a TD and this is a TD. So we've got a TD here and a TD here. For some reason, they've got their table header right here. Anyways, so, you know, they've got this laid out as a table right at the beginning, and they've got it styled in such a way that the table will be shown in the upper left corner and move all this stuff aside. I don't remember what exactly the HTML or the CSS for that is. See, display table, border class separate, box size and border block, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't know what they did here. But they did something that made the HTML kind of stretch around it. If you notice, it's kind of, the text of the page is kind of going down here. Remember what I said, HTML was built to make, one of the use cases they built it around was encyclopedia pages, so it's built around this. All right, so we got Jeremy Williams. We've got the B tag to make it bold. I didn't go into that tag, but there is a way to make things bold by just giving them the B tag. Most people don't ever use it. Born January 1984, is a Canadian professional ice hockey center. It's got all these hyperlinks. Remember the H, the A href. It's called hypertext because it's got hyperlinks. It's it's called hypertext markup language because it has hyperlinks. So we've got these hrefs to all of these other articles. That's what this is built to do. Wikipedia is a great way to look at for HTML because it is using it exactly as it was intended, for the intended purpose, to make a free encyclopedia on the internet. All right, so you've got this div, you've got this thing, you've got, hey, look, it's got a toggle span. Class 4 toggle checkbox. Huh, neat. So what this is doing is it's got some sort of JavaScript somewhere in the page that has that thing that I was showing you where it's hiding and showing a div. And I know what the div is. It's like this one, isn't it? I think I know what the div is. Let's see what happens. I have no idea how this works. Okay, I have no idea how it's modifying the HTML, but somehow it's modifying the HTML. You know what? It's probably not modifying the HTML. What it's probably doing is it's modifying. I'm going to theorize that it is modifying some CSS file somewhere, that it's somehow modifying the CSS itself to hide and show the contents by changing the way that this element, that one of these elements, either this one or this one, are displayed. I want to say probably this one, but watch, I'm going to be proven wrong here. I don't know exactly what it's doing. It's doing JavaScript, though. That I can tell you. So we've got playing career. Okay, so we go down to here. I'm just going to tag through a little bit further. We have an H2 tag, right? Remember, H2 is the second level heading. We have the edit button, and the title here is in two different spans. Now, this is the use of a span. They've got their formatted heading here, and they've got their little edit button that's right next to it, because these are both on the same line, right? So that edit button is on the same line as this plain career. That's why they're both spans inside of an H2 element. So now we have these P elements, right? The paragraph elements. And we go through and we get paragraphs. And the nice thing about paragraphs is that there are ways to set your browser to look at them differently. And there are specialized browsers that will load them differently than the standard for specific reasons, right? So that's the point of the P element. Here we get down to another table. And this is what I was talking about with tables, that you can do this thing with tables where one of the things that they tell you to do with the table is, oh, look, you can alternate the way that they look. So what they've done is they've taken the heading of the table. You know, up here they've got their heading for their table. It's in the TH tag. And they've got it, you know, showing in a different color. And that is right there, that's where it's being set, that it has a different color, right? But now we've got, you know, more rows, and then they alternate between having the default white and this off color, you know, sort of off-white color. And this is probably generated by PHP, that it does this alternation. Although I might click edit here, and then let me guess, I'm going to click edit and find that they did that. No, they did not. Okay, I didn't think so. Yeah, so, oh no, they did. So someone went through and manually had the background color of these alternate. You can do that with PHP or JavaScript. One of the big uses of JavaScript is to auto-generate stuff like this for you. You just have like kind of the content there and you just auto-generate it. Or you can automatically modify an existing table to do this by, remember what I said, you can get the elements within an element and you can make an array, and then you can go every other one in there and you can modify it. But anyways, so we get down here, we've got the references. This is probably a numbered list. Yeah, this is a numbered list. It is OL. OL means numbered list. I don't remember why it's O and not in, but OL means numbered list. So we've got list items, and then we close the numbered list. We've got all of our citations. They look all pretty because they've got, you know, these little spans in here to show you these things. Then we've got our external links, and we've got the bottom of the page. And that's how a Wikipedia article is built in HTML. I'm not going to go any further than that. Oh, hey, look, there's also some style sheets right at the bottom for some reason. Oh, okay, yeah, I see what this is. Yeah, at the very bottom of the page, they have another style tag. You can put style tags anywhere in the page, and they will work for anywhere else in the page. But they've got style tags that are referenced for. There's a way, if someone has color blindness, there is a way to set it up that they see the colorblind version. Wikipedia is great to look at for reference because it has all of this accessibility stuff in it. Anyways, there you go. There's me rambling about the layout of Wikipedia. I feel like we're falling off for the night because it's 10 o'clock here. It's late here. So I'm going to check the live stream. Oh, hey, there's someone... Let's see. I'm going to just kill this spammer. I'm just going to straight up report so that you can see. Okay. Though there's no one talking over in the YouTube. There's no one talking over here. I could talk for maybe 5 more minutes if anyone wants me to, but, you know, I think we're done here. So the next class that I want to teach here is I'm going to try and do, I could either do a class on JavaScript where y'all learn how to do, you know, this more intensive JavaScript. I won't show you how to do Ajax calls, but I could show you how to do, I don't know, y'all haven't seen Daggermore. I don't know, I could show you how to do, you know, why are you not working? Why are you not working?
I think your Chrome is just broken at this
Chrome
point,
is
sir.
broken, yeah. I think I need to restart Chrome at some point. I can't right now because
I think you just need to take computer, open window, throw computer out of window, go to hardware store and buy a new computer.
Yeah, apparently, because it's not even showing this. Okay, you know what it might be? It might be because it's streaming on YouTube, and that might be messing up, like, the way that it functions. Oh, you know what I'll do? I could show you how to do stuff like this in, well, no, it's not working there either. I don't know what's going on, because it works if I go over to that other, into a completely different tab, it'll probably work, but... Yeah, see, it's not working. It's not displaying anything. Unexpected token. What do you mean, unexpected token? Yeah, I don't know. I was gonna show you a different program, but okay, I could show you how to do more stuff like this. I make like light switches. I make all sorts of little programs. I make little games. I could show you how to do stuff like this, or I could also show you guys, I mean, we could have classes on both of these. Where the hell is that website? I used to go to this website all the time. It's binged. I'm getting binged. Jeez. And it's like it doesn't like that one. Yeah, see, it goes up first thing that happens after the ads. So yeah, this is a website. I can show you how to do stuff like this in HTML and CSS. You know, so I could show you how to do like really fancy layouts, fancier than these even. See, look, oh look, you can click things. Hell, I'll even show you guys right now how to do that one. 5-second tip on CSS. Jeez. Style.css. 5-second tip. I don't trust it. I'm just going to throw something together. This is a neat thing you can do in CSS. Oh, I should have just showed you this on Wikipedia. Oh well. Alright. So you know I have these first divs and second divs, right? Y'all remember how you can do this thing, right? Alright, so you can do this thing where you do A, right? And then contained within an A, it does that, right? A : hover. The colon hover, like whatever this is. I don't even know what to call this. I want to call it a state. I think it's a state. Alright, so I've given it the hover state. I've referenced the A hover state, right? And I've said that the div within the A that is in the hover state, in fact, I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you another way you can do this. I am going to put a comma, right? And then I'm going to put a.hover second div. All right? Okay. So that's right. It's not working in Chrome for whatever reason. All right. So a.hover. What a::hover does is it is the state of a hyperlink when you are hovering your mouse over it. So what you can do is have, heck, I could do it for all divs on the page. I could do a hover div, and it would do it for all of them. Right? All right. So yeah, that basically that's what it does. It changes the state of it when it's being hovered over. There's also I want to say it's active. I'm going to say it's active. I'm pretty sure it's active, right? I'm going to make it black. I'm going to make it black. Black sounds nice. All right, so I made it black. Refresh. Oh, that didn't work. What is it? I'm trying to remember what it means, what it is. There's one that's when you click it.
Is it not click?
It might be click. Let me go check, because there's a way to check this really quickly. Is that I can go into this, and I can go into style.css, right? And the browser should know. All right. It is not click. You know, I'm not even going to show you this. We've gone on way too long. Just know that that's a thing. You know, I've shown you this. This is a really interesting thing. I am always fascinated at how much stuff you can do in CSS for the interactivity and functionality of a page without actually messing with the page or without using JavaScript. So many things that people try to do in JavaScript is very simple to do in CSS. And if you look at the standards documents, they tell you to use CSS for those things. So, anyways, I'm feeling like we're wound down. I'm pretty much done for the night. Thanks everyone for coming for what turned out to be a 4-hour class on HTML and CSS. Next time should be a lot shorter because I'll be a lot better prepared. You know, unless there's another hurricane, then I might not be as prepared. Maybe we won't do this after a hurricane. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. But thanks for everyone who came. I know that there's people that
hurricanes are fun.
Already. What?
But hurricanes are fun. You get to have a hurricane party.
That was the worst hurricane in the history of the U.S. I do not want to go through one of those again. I was fine in like every hurricane until that one. That is the worst hurricane that we have. I have lived in Florida since 2001. That is the worst hurricane we have ever had in Florida since I have lived here. That is the worst hurricane on record. It is crazy how bad that hurricane was. So I'm not gonna.
Okay, I haven't been to
not
Florida
ask
yet,
for another
so.
raise. What?
I haven't been to Florida yet. I'm in Georgia currently, unfortunately.
Okay, well,
so.
you know what I'll say? I am fine with I'll take a Cat 1 or a Cat 2 again. I will take any hurricane but that one. I'll take another Wilma. I'll take another, another Wilma, another Charlie, another, just these ones.
What about a Katrina?
Katrina, yeah, I'll take a Katrina. I remember Katrina. I remember Wilma. I remember Isaac. These were not crazy hurricanes. These were fine. And then fucking Irma comes along and just barrels through, and wow, what a crazy hurricane.
Was it a Cat 5 or?
It was a Cat 4. The thing that made it so
It
bad,
wasn't even a Cat 5.
There are only a few on record Cat 5s, but the reason that it was so bad was it came up the west coast of Florida, and it slowed down and sat there as a Cat 4 going 10 miles an hour up the coast, just far enough out that it didn't lose any power from being over land, but it still had the Category 4 winds hitting the entirety of every county on the coast. And then it also hit winds, like Category 2 and 3 winds on the counties next to them. So for 4 counties along the coast and every county next to them, they were hit by Category 4 weather. Right? So, there is a 7-county area of Southwest Florida. The entire 7-county area has been, wrecked. It also flooded a bunch of rivers. Then at the end, it steered across the state and then didn't lose much power steering across the state. So everyone on the other coast got hit with a Cat 1 or 2 weather. And everything in between got flooded. So, yeah, that's why it was so bad. Anyways.
That explains why they're not sending me down to Florida yet, so.
Who's not sending you down?
The company I work for, Swift. So.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's
I normally go to Florida every week, and I was surprised when they just sent me to Georgia and told me, nope, you're going back north here. So.
Yeah, that's why. If you're anywhere in South Florida, most of Florida has been wrecked. It is the worst hurricane in the history of Florida. I'm with Gray right now. Gray's house was fine. Gray was far enough to the northwest that he didn't get hit. It went under him. It went south of him. It went east of him. It didn't go where he is. So he's just sitting there in his chair listening to me talk about him, in his room on the other side of his house, all smug that he didn't get by this hurricane. Anyways, so yeah, next time we'll do something else. We'll do JavaScript or web page design. But thanks everyone for coming. I am going to cut it off and go get something to eat and then go to bed. So, goodbye. I don't know what to say. Goodbye. What are you people still watching the YouTube video? Go home. Go home. You don't need to be watching the YouTube video. You're done. The show is over. Stop watching it. It's over. You're done. It's done.
Okay.
I just thought it would be